The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special crossover episode of Keeping It Strong Style in One Nation Radio. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith, Rich Latta, and James Boyd. We are here to review Forbidden Door. We've opened the podcast Forbidden Door. You know, we don't do this too often anymore. Keeping It Strong Style, One Nation Radio, together again.
We got to keep the gimmick strong, you know, for the end of the year, you know, to convince you guys to part with your hard-earned yen and give it to us.
I was gonna say, normally for a link up this magnanimous, this momentous, like you gotta pay for this. We normally put this shit on pay-per-view.
Look at this.
We normally do. We do pretty well.
This just proves how much we love y'all.
Giving y'all a little freebie.
Yeah, like I think it's almost at this point, like it's once a year that you get it for free. It's like it's some New Japan in a cross promotion match with something that we cover, like Stardom or AEW. So yeah, like who knows? Like I guess when they do the WWE X New Japan Pro Wrestling. I guess I don't know what we do then. I don't know. Like I guess we bring the Ricky and Clyde show out of retiring for that one. I don't know.
The first thing I'd like to say is if you're Googling Forbidden Door, just be very careful.
Okay, so let's talk.
Not everything that comes up is wrestling related. Just gonna throw that out there.
You sat on that for 2 years.
You built that one up.
You sat, or not 2 years. You sat on this for like a year and change, like 14 months.
It makes it funnier, James's reaction immediately in real time.
Oh boy. All right, let's talk about Forbidden Door. We got lots of matches. We got a ton of questions.
Open it up, Jeremy.
We might not get to all the questions, but we're going to try our best here to break down the card, answer the questions, and give our thoughts on the show. First thing I think we should talk about is just the live gate numbers. So we got a report here from Uncle Dave in Sports Illustrated today saying the live gate was 1.2 million US, which is a mark that no non-WWE pro wrestling show has ever held in North America, which would be 1.6 million Canadian. So huge gate for Forbidden Door 2.
Man, it's almost like we told people that there was money in serving the wrestling audience. And once again, that belief pays off. And I think it was really cool. The Forbidden Door series itself is for fans like us. And, for so long, I would watch different big shows like a WrestleMania, for example. And I would hear people try to justify it like, hey, these shows aren't for you. But this is the opposite. Like, this is like, yeah, this is for us. And it feels good.
Yeah. Awesome show.
For me, just to take off what Rich said, like, not bad for a t-shirt company, right? Not in an indie, shout out to Raj, who also had another great tweet that I'm surprised if he hasn't deleted or not, talking about Dave Meltzer like should ding the Ospreay and Omega match because of how dangerous it was. And I was like, so you've never seen Meltzer ding matches for being too dangerous before. going at him for whatever reason. Okay, anyway, yeah, man, super fun show, and shows you like you do this annually. They will never run out of matches, and because there's so many talented people, it will always be a great show. At this point, it's it's about the most bankable thing you have in wrestling right now. It's early, it's 2 for 2, but given the talent and the countless, like even at the lower rankings, if you put in bigger spots if it need be, this thing it could always be great. A decade from now, this thing could and should always be great.
Yeah, I think the success of the show, the money that was brought in, it kind of goes against some of the bad faith arguments that I've seen out there. People talking about the live attendance numbers being, lower than, like, let's say what WWE's done in the same building over the, past decade. But ultimately, that's the third largest gate in Canadian wrestling history. So, it was extremely profitable for them. There's really no way to spin it other than the fact that AEW is having a lot of success. The show was very, very profitable. And, a lot of people complained about the build last year and then even to some extent this year. And while I myself have been somewhat down on some of the booking in AEW, this just kind of shows you where simple storytelling can really pay off. You book dream matches, you give a little bit of color to it, a little bit of time on TV, some vignettes, some promotional material. And if it's something that people want to watch, they'll tune up, they'll watch it, they'll pay for it. We all paid for it, and I think we're all glad for it.
Yeah, they're talking about it was like I think the number that's getting tossed around is like 150K as far as the buys on pay-per-view as well, which you can only ask for that, especially like year over year increase from the last pay-per-view that AEW did, and New Japan shares in that. So I think that's really cool for both companies.
Do they? We don't even know what they share in that.
You would think.
Well, they were selling it on NJPWWorld.com for the Japanese audience, so you would think there were some buys there. But yeah, overall, just a great success for both companies, for AEW, and they're on start for a hot summer. We have some questions here from MJSPR. I want to get to these before we get into the match card.
New Japan got paid in exposure.
A hot dog and a handshake. But MJSPR, he was there live at the show, the Discord daddy. He has two questions for us. He says, how did the crowd translate to the broadcast? The energy was insane. And he says, overall, what were your thoughts on the card design? Seemed to flow really well, especially early on.
So you might not believe this, you may not believe this, but apparently only in Las Vegas do they not know how to mic crowds in AEW. It's the only place. But the crowd was great. It was fantastic. I had issues with the sequencing of the card. Once you see the match that I thought, probably should have main evented, ended up going on third from the top, and how the crowd had, came down after it and how it affected the two matches after. So yeah, I agree. It was a kind of a weird thing, and it was off. The buffer match design, which I feel like it hurt the last hour of the card. But up until that point, man, it was just a fun show that just it breezed by. It really did.
Went by fast. As James mentioned, I think the that buffer match shit sucks, and that is a killer, I think, in some cases, but they were able to get through it. I'm never really a fan of putting world title matches on first. I just think they could have did something else, but as far as the crowd, loved it. Toronto went hard pretty much all weekend until they had nothing left. So
I feel like I might be in the weird minority here. I don't think the crowd was bad by any means. But maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I have bad hearing or what it is, but I didn't feel like that this was the most energetic crowd. I thought it was an okay crowd in terms of reaction. Except for when the big star showed up, they really turned up big for different guys, Naito, Hiromu, MJF, different people throughout the night. But they didn't, to me, have that same sustained energy that Chicago had last year.
Yeah.
That was my feeling on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say that last year Chicago crowd overall might have been better, but I still think that this crowd here had great energy throughout the night and brought some energy to the show. I agree with you guys. I wasn't a big fan of the buffer style, laying the card out here. I like the Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan style. Just stack the match. You start from, your hot opener. That's going to be like your 3.5, 4-star match. And you just build and build and build and build until it's like the last 3 matches. And you're like, damn, we're about to get like 3, 4.5, 5-star matches to close the show.
I mean, in my opinion, honestly, I don't have a problem with them doing a quote unquote buffer match, because I do think like a North American audience reacts slightly differently to the way that like a traditional Japanese audience might respond to having 2 big matches back to back. In theory, that match with the Suzuki Gods and Sting and all them should have been the perfect buffer match if they had been a little less ambitious and didn't have some of the botches and the sloppiness. If they had just gone out there and played the hits, I feel like the crowd would have gotten with it. But because there were so many, they were a little too cute, a little too busy, and there were some botches, and the match fell apart. They weren't able to actually get back into it. And then, there were some other issues with the main event. But in theory, I think it could have worked. It just unfortunately didn't on this night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just for me. I don't disagree with you in the idea of in a vacuum, but like I think just for me, like I feel like I've seen it so many times watching WWE or even watch some of these AEW cards where it's like, especially like with Young Bucks or Kenny Omega match, it's like doesn't go on at the end, and it's like we got to put it, in the middle of the show, and it's like, bro, it's a laser light show.
We got to stop the disrespect,
and somebody has to go back, and someone has to come after that. It's like. In a match that's not as spectacular or not as like emotionally driven or not as gripping with like, the fact that they're the most over people in the company, at times. And it's like, oh, you kind of sent them out there to be an intermission break. And it's like, sometimes people struggle with it. And it feels like a lot of times more people struggle with it than succeed and able to get the crowd to come back around after a certain amount of time. So that's kind of my thing on it, but there's always ways to do something better. But I don't feel like they've mostly have like done it well enough to get away with it after all this time now.
Yeah,
I mean, Kenny and Ospreay followed basically a probably close to or near 5-star match, and they didn't have any trouble getting the crowd to pick up for them.
Yeah, but my point is like, yes, that's true, but it's also like it's the bigger match.
Oh no, I agree with you. What I'm saying is
be like maybe the second best match of the year so far that I've seen anyway. So, yeah.
I think the whole deal with like the card design and why it was laid out, and I didn't kind of figure it out until the night of, essentially. And because AEW was winning the main event, Danielson was going to win, and Kenny was losing, so that's why they didn't do the just looking at how this shit is all set up, they weren't going to send Kenny out there to lose the main event for AEW, quote unquote. So I don't know. I think they should have like gotten over that personally, and and stop the disrespect like to Ospreay and Omega, because I had to sit here. I had to see people beat the drum of why this match that is already proven it was a match of the year should not go on last for Danielson, Okada, great wrestlers and all that. But this is Canada. This is Kenny Omega in a big match. This is Will Ospreay in a big match. And I'm sorry. How many times has Kenny Omega gone on before Okada made it tough for him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't talk about this. And I was waiting.
I mean, yeah, that's a really good point. I would also say, like, in those points that you're making, like, we're in these weird situations. Like, I think probably the only one where I'm like, oh, okay, is like Naito at Wrestle Kingdom, the year that he won, 2020, or whatever, 21, whichever the year that was.
2020, the first.
Or sorry, 18. Actually, 18. It was 18.
2018.
Because Okada said
earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. But I mean, like the other two that I'm thinking of, like, it's Jay White is Okada's opponent, and the other one also is what was the other one? Because it's happened 3 times.
At least I think it was.
It's happened 3 times.
It was twice this year, and then the 2018
yeah. So
match.
like it's Danielson as he breaks his arm in the middle of the match, 10 minutes into the match, and then it's also Jay White one of the times. It's like in Omega's opponent is Ospreay. It's like, yeah, that's a walking L. Like, I tell you, Danielson's gonna break an arm. What do you think's gonna happen? I tell you, it's Jay White. What do you think's gonna happen?
The two best bookers of the last decade both got burnt by the same thing. The next time they do this, fix the issue.
Yeah. And it's also just like, it's common sense. And think about this, right? Danielson, Okada, first match, no belt on the line. Ospreay, Omega in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for the IWGP US title match in a rematch of the best match of the year.
Long storyline.
With the Callis stuff involved, you're walking.
Have wrestled each other before recently.
In this situation,
these guys already know how long. Like the agreements have already been made. It was like, like they was gonna go out there and whoop each other's ass. Like, and we saw evidence of that in January. We mentioned it on One Nation Radio. Like, or I mentioned it. It was like, this is why I thought this would be the better match. I was like, they've wrestled each other before recently. There's no figuring out to be done. Like, they could just walk in there and ball. But
yeah, I had,
and then when he got double juice too.
Yeah.
I
had genuine concern when Don Callis was sort of inserted into this program. My concern was like, the reason they're not going on last is because they're going to do some sort of fuck finish, and they don't want to, send the fans home unhappy. Right. I didn't necessarily think of it being an AEW New Japan thing. I just thought like that makes more sense. It's going to be on the undercard because it's going to be somewhat dissatisfying, which ultimately it wasn't. And I literally did not think that there was any way whatsoever that Okada was doing a job for Bryan Danielson at Forbidden Door. I just did not think that was a realistic possibility whatsoever. And once it all popped off, and I was talking to you earlier today, Rich. You mentioned that you're like, yeah, they want their guy to go over last in the main event. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we probably should have figured that was a very realistic possibility. I just couldn't imagine that New Japan agreed to it, but ultimately it looks like, I'm guessing,
rematch.
We're going to get a rematch, probably going to be in January 4th in the Tokyo Dome, and it's probably going to be Okada, picking up the win over Danielson there, and which means Okada's probably not winning the G1 this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of interesting stuff for
Naito has to be like, is he? I imagine he's a favorite because last year we kind of thought this was like his last chance. He wrestled great. Some
of the time,
you see, do you think if you are going to put Sonata, as the champion in the Dome, the only person you can put him in there with to draw the house is Naito?
It seems like that's where the story's going.
I mentioned that on Keeping It Strong Style a couple weeks ago. I was kind of seeing the tea leaves of Sonata. Yep. Naito, Tokyo Dome main event. Sonata's kind of been slowly working through the LIJ guys, and you can tell this whole big story between Naito and Sonata, and you can build it up really well. Have Naito, get that G1 win.
Right, and like it goes back even further. You can be like, hey, who did Sonata beat in the New Japan Cup?
Mm-hmm. Naito, yeah.
So yeah. Like I've been thinking about this for like about a month or so. It's like I'm not so sure that like you need to get the belt off of Sonata so quickly, given that like these big shows he's drawn well on top. Ain't like his oh my god, we gotta get off him. So it's like I don't necessarily see somebody that's gonna just take it off him at Destruction or whatever else.
Yeah.
So if he gets to the Dome, may as well put it on Naito, because if you give Naito the idea that like he can win the G1 and get to the Dome, he's gonna ball. I saw it last year. Screw that man. Say again, Rich.
I said he will turn the clock back.
Yeah, bro.
Just so you know, turned 40 years old like last week or some shit. About to get another one.
Oh man. Well, let's start talking about the card here. We're going to briefly go through the 0 hour pre-show matches. I'll just run through the results, and maybe we can kind of give overall thoughts about the pre-show. So opened up, we had the Mogul Embassy of Bishop Khan, Brian Cage, Swerve Strickland, and Toa Leona with Prince Nana defeating the Chaos team of Chuck Taylor, Rocky Romero, and Trent Beretta with El Desperado. Then we had a Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament quarterfinal match with Athena defeating Billy Starks. Then we had El Phantasmo defeating Stu Grayson. And then the main event of the 0 Hour, we had the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi defeating the United Empire team of Jeff Cobb, Kyle Fletcher, and TJP.
A couple quick thoughts I just have. First match of the night, I liked the guys that they had involved, but at the same time, it was weird having Desperado kind of teamed up with people that he normally wouldn't, be teamed up with in New Japan. It sort of seemed like he was shoehorned into there. So that was a little bit strange. Plus, the crowd wasn't that reactive for that match. The Athena Billy Starks match, very enjoyable. I thought that they over-delivered, but it didn't fit the motif of like what Forbidden Door is, and sort of felt like maybe it was better served being on television than on this pay-per-view. I don't know. I liked Stu Grayson versus ELP, even though it was a little bit kind of just showcasey for ELP to like fly around. I would like for them to have done more kind of weird New Japan AEW type of matches in these other spots as opposed to, what they did. And then the main event, the 6-man tag, was fantastic, and it was really good, and it was the first time that the crowd really came alive, especially for Hiromu and the rest of the LIJ guys. But I don't know if I wanted to see 2 units from New Japan going at it on the undercard of this whole thing. And this could have maybe been better if like House of Black or something like that was, interacting with one of the New Japan units. That just probably would have been more in the spirit of what Forbidden Door is. Even though, like, I get it, Kyle Fletcher is like AEW. Most people kind of don't even really know that yet,
Yeah, I think that was my major issue with the pre-show. There wasn't as much on the cross matchups. Of course, we got the callback with Swerve and Despy of last year, and I'll just mention it real quick. Swerve coming off, facing Tanahashi the night before, losing to him, and pretty much demonstrating that that he's kind of getting tapped on the shoulder to like be next. He comes back and gets the win. Following the following day, but we recently saw these guys going at each other. I think it was Rampage. I think it was a Empire or United Empire and Chaos.
Yes, Swerve teamed up with Ospreay, Fletcher, and Cobb to take on Best Friends. Yeah.
Right. And then, as Josh mentioned, Kyle Fletcher is signed to AEW now, but I just think they could have got more creative in the pre-show, especially knowing all the juniors that are available, the young lions, the young wrestlers who I think you want to start mixing them in with the Forbidden Door brand to start building stuff for the future, especially looking at all the people that didn't make this show on this show, your Keith Lees, or Ricky Starks, Hobbs, FTR,
Doki was in town.
Doki was there just chilling,
He had a great match with Jack Perry on Rampage. He got over huge. Crowd was doing holy Dookie chants. And got over.
David Finlay, all the whole new Bullet Club. Tony Khan could have got an early look at all those guys to see which one he wants, in the future. So,
Yeah, interesting.
I'm glad you're stopping there because I thought you were about to go on next. Be like, oh, they also missed out on House of Torture. Like, nah, bro. Now you going.
Well, look, it is not.
Show was there. Show wrestled on Ring of Honor taping.
Show was there. Ring of Honor would have been cool to have, though.
Yes, that's true. But look, Ring of Honor, not the same thing. It's over there.
Yeah,
it's the same.
It's not the same. Ain't nobody gonna watch that.
Overall, I enjoyed the pre-show. I thought, funny thing in the first match, we had Rich's good friend Swerve against Keeping It Strong Style's good friend Rocky Romero.
Yeah. Proxy battle right there.
I didn't think about that.
So that was pretty funny to see. I agree with you guys on the Billy Starks Athena matchup. Just kind of didn't really fit the vibe of the show, even though I've kind of been digging the Athena push and what I've been seeing clips of what she's doing in Ring of Honor, and the death match she had last week looked pretty cool. But yeah, just didn't really fit the vibe of the show. ELP, I thought, looked really good in his match with Stu Grayson. We had a question from Grunty Dodds. Were you surprised by any of the crowd reactions? I thought ELP would Would have gotten him more since he's Canadian, but my section seemed pretty tepid, and based on conversations around me, people didn't recognize who he was without the Bullet Club branding.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd did not seem to have that much of a reaction for him, and I think that has a lot to do with the way he's been promoted in New Japan. I mean, granted, they've done some cool things with him, but he's never been the top guy when he was a junior, and then he was brought up and he lost the feud with Finlay, and now he's just kind of in this no man's land, sort of undefined, unaffiliated, territory. And there, aside from the fact that he's ELP and he looks cool and he does great moves, no one's really quite sure who ELP is right now. That might change, but for right now, he's sort of a hidden secret in New Japan.
Yeah, also, I don't think it helped, too, that he was facing Stu Grayson, which people were probably confused why is named the Dark Order. If you're not watching ROH, you wouldn't have known that Stu turned his back on Dark Order and joined the Righteous with Vincent and the other dude, Dutch.
I didn't know what the fuck the Righteous even was.
Bro, I saw that white man going out there doing that little step and then snapping his fingers, and I was dying laughing. Like, I know I've seen them before, but this kind of popped me in a way that it hadn't previously.
So now, Josh, a few minutes ago was like, it's all the same thing. Can you run that by me of what exactly Stu Grayson is doing and tell me how the fuck I was supposed to know that was going on if I was not watching ROH? It's not the same thing at all, bro. Nah.
Yeah, but there's lots of stuff that happens in AEW that we don't know what the fuck it is when they had Dark. It's the same shit.
Yeah, you got a point.
At least Dark was free.
What was the one group that you guys used to mark over with all the
Trustbusters?
Oh, yeah.
No. Hold the fuck on.
Slim J.
What do you mean by y'all? Y'all mean more than one person. I know damn well you're not getting me mixed up with Rich's nonsense.
Respect Slim J.
Slim J.
Oh my gosh.
Who else? Shoot, great tradition of great groups like
all y'all all love
Peter Avalon and
all right, white man, you be careful with that all y'all shit.
Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi.
Wingmen.
Lots of great traditions. Yes, the Wingmen.
Oh yeah, that's the group I was thinking of, the Wingmen.
Oh my god.
Pinky's out,
Boy.
Yeah.
That early to AEW. Oof.
All right. Any other thoughts on the 0 hour before we move to the main card?
Now let's get it.
They should have done cooler shit.
Yeah, do cooler shit.
All right. So the main card of Forbidden Door 2023 opened up. We had the AEW World Title match. MJF defeats the Ace Hiroshi Tanahashi 15 minutes and 46 seconds.
I enjoyed the match for what it was. I came in a little late to it. I got a story for that. Not going to get into it right now while I was late. It wasn't my fault. I was late. It wasn't my fault. It's one of the rare times I'm late and it wasn't my fault, but whatever. Yeah, man.
Okay.
No, fuck that. We're going to get into it.
The $40.
Shout out to the homie at Publix that wanted to charge me $40 for a 16-piece. Shout out. Shout out to you.
I'm sure
it caused me to be late to watching, one of the biggest shows in wrestling this year. Shout out to you. Anyway,
nice.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm digressing. Sorry, going too far. Back onto the road. Yes. No, sorry. Brewhead has made pulled his back off the road. Sorry, man. Yeah, man.
This feels like part 2 to the haircut conversation. How much are you willing to pay for chicken?
Bro. Yeah. Rich. I stopped at the Publix by Jamie's spot to pick up the chicken and then take it to Jamie's spot. I ordered a 16-piece. An 8-piece is like $9. So a 16-piece is like $16.
Yeah.
The person clearly marked on the label 8-piece and charged me the 16 price and then realized it was a fuck up. So they just put the stamp over the top or the receipt thing over the top of it. Fixing the price, but you can see that one was over the top. So this guy thought that I was trying to scam some fucking chicken. So he was like, "Wait, so what's going on?" I was like, I didn't even look at the price for the first one. So I was like, "Oh, no, this is a 16-piece." He was like, "So it's double?" I was looking at things like you. So I said this calmly without, I can be Rich. I said this calmly, like, so you thought a 16 piece was $40? And he didn't like realize that I asked him that like he's a fucking idiot. He was like, I was like, okay, so you want to take it back to the deli to get it straightened out? He took it back to the deli to get it straightened out. $40 for a 16 piece, Rich. I thought that's what the price of this was.
Yeah, no
that
cap.
Works out of policy. I'm not asking some rich out of touch motherfucker how much the cost of milk is per gallon. He has no idea. There's a person that works at the store.
I had a very similar experience at Publix.
And he thought this was $40. He's handling money in the back.
Josh, go ahead.
I had a very, I won't get into it. I had a very similar experience at Publix just a few days ago. So I get it. They're fucking up over there. As far as this match goes.
Yeah.
Bring us back.
I'll just say it. This was so much better than it had any right to be, when the reality is Hiroshi Tanahashi is, like I've been saying, for the better part of over a year, completely and totally shot and broken down. And yet him and MJF were able to go out there and just play the crowd like a fiddle. And they ate it up and they responded to every single thing that they did the entire evening. This was a masterclass in like working the crowd, and it was highly entertaining. And in some ways, it was kind of sad because like Tanahashi cannot wrestle at the top level any longer. I think the last time he was really viable in that way was like last year's G1, and I don't think he's ever gotten it back since then. But regardless, they told a really good story. MJF was selling the knee, and so that played a lot of what was happening when he got the knees up and Tanahashi hit the high five flow and everything like that. But, ultimately they did a fuck finish where the referee got involved. He hits Tanahashi with the ring, pins him 1, 2, 3. But the crowd was just so into it. And for me, even if a match is like on the downside, it's sort of like that Rock Hogan thing. If the crowd is into it, it's always going to get over with me for the most part. And the crowd was really, 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 really into this. So I liked it. I liked it a lot more than I think the majority of the fan base on both sides like this match. I thought the crowd was just really integral to making this match matter.
I think they reacted to both guys like stars, especially like MJF was noticeable. It seems like month by month he's getting a little bit more. Of course, comes out with the New Japan as an indie fed jacket on and designed to get all the right people angry at him. And Tanahashi's a dad, man. And it's been a hell of a ride for Hiroshi Tanahashi to be as great as he was for as long as he was, and to find ways to work us with his injuries, to fight off Father Time the way he did, and to take his game essentially from the air to the ground to the emotion stuff. And just thinking about it, it's just like we all love Tanahashi, and just seeing him is just like I know he's washed. Why can't he just stay? Like, just stay here, Tanahashi. Like, you don't have to wrestle any more G1s. You don't have to, do road anymore. You can just, warm it up every couple of weeks. We all love you here.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into a question, too, from Botchmaster00. How bad do you guys think Tanahashi's knees need to get before he gets some rest? The magic is still there, but it's getting tough to watch.
You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit? If you've ever seen the documentary where Muhammad Ali is getting ready to fight Larry Holmes, and they talk about how, like, Ali takes off the robe and he's like, look at this. And he had a full six-pack, and they're like, champ, that doesn't matter. Like, you're washed. Like, that's Tanahashi. Comes out, he's still got the abs, but the knees are shot. The speed is gone. Like, he can't hang at that level.
God, that's sick. That is sick.
Oh man.
It was a slow match, but they played the hits, and can't hate it too much.
Yeah, it was a fun matchup, but yeah, it was kind of rough watching Tanahashi, especially the night before on Collision when he wrestled Swerve.
Back-to-back nights for the Ace. Look at that. There's NBA players who don't play back-to-backs.
And he just could not get his footing on the AEW turnbuckle top ropes. He had a hard time in the Swerve match. Swerve saved the match in that spot there, and then this match here with MJF, he was struggling too. I don't know, maybe if that was a little bit of psychology from Tanahashi where he was trying to play up to the botch the previous night, or he was continuing to struggle with that.
They got different kinds of turnbuckles in Japan. That's what that's about.
Yeah.
He's not used to it.
James, what do you think about this match?
I have nothing to say. Josh has just hurt my soul.
Oh man!
Compared Hiroshi Tanahashi to a dude that had brain damage who was still fighting. Wow.
We had another question here from Stale Burger Bun. He says, "Will MJF main event another pay-per-view during his title reign?"
Seems like I think he's gonna main event against Punk in Wembley.
I think it's gonna be actually Chicago against Punk, unless they do like a back-to-back rematch kind of thing.
I think they're gonna do that at the United Center, but he's gonna be underneath whatever one would think Kenny Omega's doing at All In, or Kenny Omega. I don't know. Bryan Danielson's injured. So that's probably out the window. If it's Ospreay Omega 3, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I disagree. I think Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay is going to go down as one of the notable greatest series of matches that never main events a single show that it's on. I don't think that's main eventing Wembley. I don't think it's main eventing another AEW pay-per-view or New Japan Wrestle Kingdom. It's going to go on before MJF in whatever MJF is doing in Wembley.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Follow that, pal.
The best belt machine does not take kindly to the disrespect.
I'm not saying it's the right call. I'm just telling you that's the MO.
Some fraudulent. I feel like some fraudulence is going on here, man. Like
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can see them doing a back-to-back thing because you have All In one weekend, All Out the next weekend. You could have Punk beat MJF in Wembley, and then Punk gets the rematch, or MJF gets a rematch in Chicago the next weekend, gets it back, or vice versa. Like you can do like a double main event kind of thing there.
They did that before. Punk was confused. He never saw Rocky 3, so he didn't like it.
All right, moving on to the next matchup. We had Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament quarterfinal match with CM Punk defeating Satoshi Kojima 13 minutes and 40 seconds.
This was a blast. I know there are some people that have different feelings about CM Punk. Some that are legitimate, some that are like things that you should be able to dismiss as just being like just over the top. But he had that crowd eating out the palm of his hands, and he knew it, and he fucking reveled in it, and he loved it every second of it. And for him to have this match versus Kojima and then like pull out some fucking ROH insider joke from like 20 years ago to my Lariat, Kojima. Look, he was having the time of his life. The crowd was super into it. In a spot where a lot of people would have some worries about, like, how's the crowd going to react to Kojima. He was over, and they were rooting for him because that crowd hated Punk so much. And Kojima did, he did the hits like usual, and he still can go when it was asked upon him to do whatever. And I thought they put a very fun match together that could basically be run on any show, and people would have enjoyed it. Now, I'm not saying it's a classic, or I'm not saying it's even a great match, but it was a fun match. And watching them, more or less, do their thing with, getting by more on charisma than like detailed storytelling and detailed athleticism, or not detailed, or like extreme athleticism. Like, there's not a Young Bucks match. It's not a Kenny Omega Ospreay match. It's not a Danielson Okada match. This was like quintessential undercard fun. And like I would suggest the people that are really upset with CM Punk to figure out what you're gonna do whenever he's in a town near you, because if you keep it up and give him these kind of reactions, what do you think's gonna happen? What do you think's more likely to happen when you give him these kind of reactions? Y'all better chill the fuck out for you have Tony Khan get that man the belt again, because he's a mark for that dude. Y'all better knock this shit off.
Jeremy, 2023, Kojima better than Tanahashi, who really won the war.
Listen, Satoshi Kojima can still go, baby. This man came out here and outperformed the Ace. This man came out here, had a great match with CM Punk. It's a shame this man is not in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. This man should be in the Hall of Fame by himself. Sorry, Tenzan. You can try on your own. I'm starting the agenda this year. We're going to get Kojima into the Hall of Fame. We're going to do this for Bread Club. This man came out here. Great shape, strongest arms, chopping this man, lariating this man.
Older than CM Punk.
Koji Cutter, this man turned the clock back. You would have thought this was, 03 MLW Punk versus Kojima. This was great. I loved it.
Yeah, me and Jeremy were over at Jamie's, and we were just having a blast watching this bullshit. Not even bullshit in a bad way, but like it was just such a good, fun match, man. I'm interested to see what y'all two had to say about it. Me and Jeremy, we were like pigs and shit. We was happy as hell.
This was my first time seeing CM Punk wrestle since he returned. I live a busy life. I don't have time to watch Saturday Night Collision, so I haven't seen any of those matches. I did like CM Punk's new gear. I thought that I don't know. I think that when he wears like the fight trunks, it's a little bit more fitting than like the long tights. I think those long tights are not great looking. Punk got very divisive reactions, and like you mentioned, James, depending on how this kind of continues as time goes on, if he continues to get earth-shattering heat like he is here, I don't know where the company goes as far as booking him in terms of face-heel dynamics, but he's getting very impassioned responses regardless, and that's going to endear him to the bookers because they don't have as many guys like him that are getting that many impassioned responses. So yeah, the people that hate him, they're letting them know, and it might come back and bite those fans in the ass. But there is something to be said. That is a very unique sort of environment that has kind of, even though I'm not a Punk fan right now, it has kind of turned my feelings about it where I'm like, this is kind of different than anything else that's on the card. It might be interesting to see where this goes. But ultimately, I still stand behind what I said last week on our show where like I think that there are still bridges to be crossed, things that need to be ironed out in terms of just the longevity and the viability of him being in the company anyways. Putting all that aside, I thought Punk, his shtick in this match was hilarious. Him hamming it up, him hitting the Mongolian chops and all that, and then the way he was pretending like he was taking the chops and he like pushed him off because he didn't want to take any more chops. He looked like me in training, basically wanting to get the fuck out of there. And then but obviously like it was all just a setup. Kojima comes back, he gives him more chops. They had a lot of fun. I did think though, I'll tell you this, I don't think Punk's in great shape. He had a long layoff. I think he should have probably gotten in better shape like he did the first time when he came back. He kind of looks not great in terms of that. And I thought he was sloppy. I thought that there were some awkward bumps, some awkward sells. Maybe I'm more of a stickler for that sort of stuff than other fans. I don't know. This was a fine match. It was fun. I loved that the crowd was so into Kojima, which I didn't expect whatsoever. And then the last thing I'll kind of say about it is as fun as this was, as interesting as it was, Punk got outperformed by almost everybody else on this card when it comes to singles matches. And as fun as the shtick was, this was mid-card fodder. And I thought the women outperformed him. I thought even broken down Tanahashi and MJF had a better match overall. And I do think it's going to be interesting to see can he be carried back to the main event scene just based off of charisma, just based off nostalgia, based off of great promos, versus the kind of in-ring work that like Kenny Omega is putting out there, and that like Bryan Danielson and the BCC and guys like, you know, and Hangman Adam Page, does he deserve to be up there with those guys? Yeah, and Takeshita, Ray Phoenix. We'll see. But on this night,
Buddy Matthews, Andrade,
he had a fun match, but I thought he got mopped by almost everybody on the card that evening.
Big reactions to everything. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought the whole crowd booing him was, you know, this is what it was always going to be. I don't think this is some genius plan from AEW and CM Punk. I think the fans decided this, is contrary to how people were trying to spin this. Be like, yeah, you know, we're going to be polarized on purpose. No, I think the fans made that choice for them. Smart on them for leaning into it. Of course, you know, CM Punk's never had a problem getting booed or anything like that. The only thing, you know, it adds more into, you know, he wants to be like Bret Hart or whatever. But one thing with that whole Bret Hart thing, and Josh kind of hinted at it, it leaves you in a weird position for how you get booked sometimes, especially the longer it goes on. Sometimes you get left with no opponents, because it's like, who wants to be on the wrong side of this thing or whatever. But, you know, I think this is going to culminate with him getting a title shot at All Out. As far as like, you know, Kojima, love Kojima. He's he's fucking hilarious. He was talking about it all on Twitter today, and liking different tweets, and you know, just kind of every time Kojima comes over,
liking wild shit.
Every time he comes over, I think he's a little bit more over than everyone thinks, and I think he is a little bit more appreciated than a lot of people think, despite not, you know, his rise to power not necessarily coinciding with a lot of this fan base. But he's someone I think a lot of people just appreciate. Kind of like one of those people that, you know, you might not necessarily have been in New Japan the whole time, but you like help lay the groundwork for Puro in general, like throughout like the 2000s and all that.
Right, like we've seen it in person, like before the pandemic when they had that show in St. Pete.
Yeah,
like,
new beginning, yeah.
Right, like because he's charismatic and everything, like he makes it all work. Like he's a guy that obviously with the language barrier it wouldn't have worked perfectly, but like he's a guy similar to Yuji Nagata, without obviously didn't have the same amount of fan for WCW stuff, but like he's somebody that like comes in and is going to wrestle and give you it has a high floor and is a veteran, has done everything, seen everything, and knows how to get through anything you put him in front of. And it's not a high stakes situation, you have to worry about it. But he's also still so good that like if you put him in a high stakes situation, he go out there and give you 40 in small doses. Like when we see him in Noah, for example, in the last year. Mm-hmm. Like that match he had last summer in Budokan Hall versus Kano or Kano for the title match, for the top title. That match is great. The tag title match he had in Budokan on January 1st this year was great. Like he's a guy that can give you what you if you don't ask for much, he can come out here and give you anything you ask for. Just don't ask for it a lot, and don't ask for something at the highest of levels. Ask for great, he can give you great.
I watched the show with my girlfriend and her brother. And her brother, you know, he's a big wrestling fan, but maybe not as familiar with a lot of the New Japan guys. So he was kind of asking me in relation to like age and popularity, what were some like comparable, you know, generational guys. And Kojima came out and he's like, he's older, huh? He's like, what generation would he be? And I was like Triple H.
And then he's like, really? Wait, Triple H couldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, like, and then you start thinking about it, it's like Triple H, Kurt Angle, The Rock, they can't do what Kojima's doing today, but that's the same age, that's the same generation he comes from. Like, and then you know, he'd seen Tanahashi, and he's like, so Tanahashi's older than him? And I was like, no, Tanahashi's like the like 02, like the Brock Lesnar, Batista, John Cena, like he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, Kojima's just really good. He can still go. It's kind of weird.
He didn't damage his knees doing high fly flows for 2 decades.
Yeah, you know,
this stuff comes out of cost, kids.
strike base offense. It's walk and brawl. Yeah,
but fun match. Like nothing to go crazy over, but you'll take those reactions whenever you can get them.
Yeah. A few questions here. Still, Burger Bun says, now that we've seen the long-awaited dream match of Kojima versus Punk, which other AEW guys would you like to see Kojima wrestle in the future? All of them. Let's get this Kojima AEW tour coming. Tampa is getting a Dynamite in August. Bring Kojima over. Let's run it, baby. Give me that Kojima run. Let's go. International title. OC's had it for a while. Maybe a little, Koji Cutter.
So I know you going. I know you in your bag and you doing your thing. I'm not. Look, no, I'm not. I'm not even gonna step on it. I'm just gonna move over to something else that was pointed out. Didn't Kojima wrestle 2 years ago or last year Moxley on AEW?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like Moxley versus all those New Japan dads. That shows you what can happen if you do this, in a certain way. Like, yeah. So Kojima, yeah, sure. Yuji Nagata, same thing. Obviously, he's tied up with All Japan right now, but you get my point. It's like those New Japan dads, if called upon, can get it done. Tanahashi, I don't think he can move as well as those guys are at this point, but like still, he can get by on charisma and all that. But just you compare, their contemporaries, and from American perspective, he's like, nah, man. Like, how many? Like, how old is Undertaker now? 50 what? 57?
Up there, like 57, 58.
Yeah, something like that.
50 old.
Usually got is what, 55?
Yeah.
Nah, man. You ask Undertaker to have a Yuji Nagata match, he might die.
I'm sure that people probably have better answers than this for me, but like if I were to get Kojima against anybody in the land of Tony Khan, a match he's never had in any iteration would be against Samoa Joe. They've never stood across from each other. And we already saw what Joe could do with an older guy like Suzuki, where they just go out there and throw strikes.
Right.
That would be fun as hell.
Okay.
So let's do that.
I'm in.
Yes.
Eddie Kingston, of course, obviously. Like any of the AEW brawlers versus the New Japan dads, sign me up. I'm tune in to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, Shibata.
Yeah, you could do that. Pure title match. Barry Wall says, Jeremy, were you happy?
Him against anybody from New Japan's a dream match.
Barry Wall says, Jeremy, were you happy to see Kojima being the most over guy of the crowd on the card? O's on top. Yes, I was loving it, Barry. Then we had a question from SRHBKS. Why is Punk so ass at wrestling? And how does he fool so many people with his cartoon villain BS?
I'll take this one. This one was sent to me directly. So to address the question, I think CM Punk is not ass at wrestling, right? However, I think to address your second part, like why he's quote unquote fooling so many people. A lot of fans right now, a lot of their anchor to being a pro wrestling fan, it starts and sometimes ends with CM Punk. From the beginning of last decade, and it's hard to give some of that stuff up, and say, yeah, it ain't hitting like the best of the best or whatever. We were just talking about Tanahashi, and Tanahashi's beloved. Obviously, Hiroshi Tanahashi hasn't sat, and alienated himself to a lot of the fan base of New Japan or anywhere else. But nostalgia is a powerful thing. And also, strange tribes link up at times. And, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
I think Punk is very good at wrestling. He's just not as good as the top level of work that we've come to expect in AEW at the top level. That's my opinion on it. I think he, for the amount of time he's had off and the, well-documented case that he's not the most athletic person in the world, he's kind of an overachiever in the fact that he really understands psychology and really knows how to work a crowd and has been able to do the most with what he was given. And there was a time where I would have definitely considered him one of the best workers in the world at a certain time, but that was over a decade ago. And now he's a guy that is kind of an old head and he's still very good, but I don't consider him as good as what we've come to expect from the top level of AEW when it comes to the main event scene. That's my personal opinion.
This is my opinion. We were not a decade ago like on one and just pretending that this guy wasn't a good ass wrestler. He was one of the better storytellers in the game at the time. And I'm pretty sure that if I were to pull up matches from 2011 through 2013, even his best matches, right? And played them. And then I played like stuff like his title, the second match with Moxley, or the match with MJF, or the match with Page or Moxley. I forgot which one I mentioned previously. I mentioned his best stuff. This is his match with Eddie Kingston. If I show you those matches, you're not going to come back to me and be like, oh yeah, there's just a gigantic decline in his work, his actual technical work, and his match quality. You're just going to be like, oh, the standard has changed. CM Punk ain't changed that much in the ring. We have. That's really what it comes down to. And people that are unimpressed with CM Punk, I don't think they have the background to realize exactly what the American landscape was when he was considered one of the best guys compared to now, when you see all these guys that came up and had the internet to watch everything, to pick from everything to get better at it.
Yeah, unfortunately for CM Punk, he found himself in All Elite Wrestling, where the floor for great wrestling is just so high, and
right.
His psychology is great. He's great at promos. He has charisma. He's a pro wrestling star. He has that fan base he can draw. But at the end of the day, AEW was founded on great matches by great professional wrestlers. And when you have guys like Kenny Omega and Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. and Hangman Page and Konosuke Takeshita killing it every week on TV and pay-per-view, it's hard to compete with that.
The one thing I will say about Punk in his defense,
or people who can just lie. Have we considered that?
The other thing that this company was founded on was incredible promos and incredible programs, and that's one of the things that he does maybe almost better than almost anybody in the company, and that's probably one of the reasons he's still getting by. But
right,
I digress.
That's the thing when it comes to certain people's aspect of what they respect and what they don't respect in pro wrestling, and what they value more. And it's like, okay, you're telling me that he's not at the top in this particular category. Would you like to go through what programs in AEW history is better than MJF versus CM Punk, or better than the short sprint than Kingston and CM Punk?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to do that? Oh, gee, I wonder why. Like, I get it. Like, he did some fuck shit. I get it. I don't approve of his behavior either. However, that motherfucker is good at one aspect, or that motherfucker is as good as anyone at one particular aspect of wrestling. And then in the other one, he can hold his own. And like, if you don't value that, I see why you be like, enough. I'm not impressed by this dude. Like, I'd rather watch somebody else. I get it. But you're looking at it from a skewed like prism for your context of what makes a great wrestler.
Well, we'll see what happens.
To be fair, we've done this with people in AEW before. That's why, Cody Rhodes is in WWE right now.
That's true. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And CM Punk's TV is way more consistently better than what Cody was doing in AEW as far as program building. Just a wholly different type of level.
Yeah.
He never got whipped.
That is true.
He ain't moonsault off a cage.
He never moonsaulted off a cage.
Never set us on fire.
Yeah, CM Punk also never tried to tell me that Atlanta is post-racial. CM Punk also never told me that. So there's some gives and takes.
He never healed America of its racism.
Oh man.
All right, let's move on to the AEW International Title 4-Way match. We had Orange Cassidy, the champion, defeating Daniel Garcia, Katsushiro Shibata, and Zack Sabre Jr. 11 minutes and 15 seconds.
This was cool. I kind of a weird cross match of guys. Like, there are a lot of grapplers. Like, usually when I see 4-ways, I think like high flying. I think like just tons of people getting moved in and out. this one was kind of carried a lot by the striking, people facing off, pushing each other out the way, and ultimately it just ended up with Orange Cassidy stealing it at the end. Interesting kind of cross pairings, because anytime you get Daniel Garcia in there with some of the people, Daniel Garcia is obviously being invested in, for the future. In like 5 years from now, he's going to be like one of the best all around guys there is. And Orange Cassidy keeps rolling. He's a curveball for anybody almost. But I feel like there was another 4-way that could have been constructed with the roster, that was available that might have been slightly more interesting. But for me, this is when, the real cards started. I was like, all right, the old man matches are out the way. So let's get to, let's get to the real shit almost. So, and that's respect. I dug this one.
Yeah, the youth movement with Katsuyori Shibata from New Japan.
Yeah.
And Zack Sabre Jr., who's a lot older than you think he is. Looking at him.
And Orange Cassidy is also a lot older than you think
He's
he is.
Old too. This match was fine. I definitely think it was in that spirit that we were talking about earlier, where you've kind of got a unique matchup full of different characters from these various different companies sort of interacting, and you never expected it. And there was sort of a lack of the big multi-man tags that we'd seen on last year's show. But at the same time, it kind of felt in the build up to this match kind of weird and convoluted, because it almost felt like we had two separate programs happening, where we were going to get like Daniel Garcia against Shibata, and then maybe like the TV title versus the international title. But ultimately, all 4 guys ended up in the same match, so that was fine. I thought the work was good, maybe not great. I'm seeing some very high scores, so I think most of the audience was probably more into this than maybe I was. Ultimately, they did go with the old trope where the champion who's going to retain waits until everybody else hits their finishers and then dumps the guy who hit his finisher last out of the ring and then picks up the win. We've all done it. If you're ever playing WWE 2K, it's the best way to win a multi-man match. It works perfectly. And that's exactly what Orange Cassidy did here. A little bit out of character for a guy like him, because he is a babyface, and that's typically something you see from a heel. But I think it fits with the story they're telling, where he's kind of gone through hell in this very busy, very, challenging title challenge period. And now he's sort of a champion that's holding on by a thread and kind of dealing, he's had
25
a lot of
defenses.
25 defenses in a very short period of time. So, I think it kind of fits the story that they're telling here. The work was good. I thought it was highly entertaining. I loved Daniel Garcia doing, the salsa and the dance he does. The dance he does, kind of hilarious. But it seemed in the post-match, like now that Daniel Garcia lost and he's out of the way, these 3 champions are still going to have something going on between them in some form or fashion, even beyond this event. Maybe on ROH TV, which none of us watch, so I don't know.
Yeah, and at least a question from Les Commission 7252. After that tremendous fatal 4-way, how could Japan not book Zack Sabre Jr. against Shibata sometime this year, or even hold it until Wrestle Kingdom for Shibata to dethrone Zack for the TV title?
Well, there's this thing where Katsuyori Shibata called an audible on management. They didn't like that shit, and he's never coming back.
There's this other thing also,
but he's
where that
running
man
the
is
U.S. department, right?
Look, that man is an AEW Ring of Honor wrestler now. I don't care what anybody says.
So, okay, all right, for me, I'm watching this match, and I'm watching, obviously, Sabre not take any of the bullshit from Orange Bollocks. And
Orange Bullocks.
Yeah, and bending up his arm into a pretzel. Orange Cassidy's affected by it. Anytime Orange Cassidy goes for any of his Orange Cassidy stuff, Sabre is like, I'm not with the bullshit. Knock it the fuck off. I'm going to, fuck up your hand and your arm and your wrist. And then you have him versus Shibata, obviously, because of how they met last year at Forbidden Door. And in the meantime, like, you have Garcia that wants the pure title back from Shibata. And I thought that, like, this match, for most of it, when, like, you have Shibata and Sabre, and that was Shibata's kind of return match, exhibition match that they had unannounced, and they're rocking each other, and they're getting him out the way. They're getting Garcia out the way so they continue, and then like ultimately you see Shibata has the match won over Garcia, and then Orange Cassidy at the end after like steals the pin, so you have all these reasons to continue all the stuff of the turmoil, what the build was. It was like you mentioned all these things that were in the air of what could happen. Is like I feel like this was I know it's a WWE trope finish, but like this is the finish you do if you want to continue all that stuff with singles matches amongst all these people, right? Like Sabre ate up Orange Cassidy so they can still have a title versus title match for international title if need be. Shibata respects Orange, but he just got fucked over by the dude and had the match won, so you can do that. And the person that ultimately ended up getting beat was beat by Shibata. And like if Garcia is gonna have to try to do something to get his pure title back. So like I thought it worked for the story they're trying to tell to continue all this stuff.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job booking this match out. I really enjoyed it. Also loved, Garcia doing the salsa dance throughout that. There's some great sequences, and I thought it was a really fun match. I think maybe on a different timeline, this probably should have opened the show. Kind of that fast paced, kind of fun opener. But overall, really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next. There is a ROH pay-per-view next month, so we're probably going to get Shibata defending the pure title against Daniel Garcia there. But like you guys said, Shibata, he's a ROH, he's a Tony Khan wrestler now. I don't expect to see him wrestling in Japan. He'll maybe New Japan Strong US pay-per-view, maybe, but I have a hard time seeing him again in New Japan.
Yeah, the guy's got the line mark on the logo, but he doesn't wrestle for the company.
He's not even the trainer anymore.
He's not the trainer of the LA Dojo. Like, he's not affiliated with them, but he's quote unquote signed a contract with them. But we don't know what the details are. It's fucking weird. One other thing too, I'll say this: even though I didn't necessarily love the match, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. We also have to keep in mind it was a 4-way, and one of the dirty little secrets of wrestling is like 4-way matches generally suck. If you go through the history of like great 4-way matches, there aren't that many. So this probably over-delivered in a lot of ways, if you're grading on the 4-way curve.
Yeah.
I wasn't grading on the 4-way curve, but I thought this match was great. Like for me, this was easy 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm also 4 stars.
I think that's probably about right. Just like the main event.
Well, we'll get there in a second. But first, let's talk about the IWGP World Heavyweight title match. The champion from Just 5 Guys, Sonata, defeats Jungle Boy Jack Perry 10 minutes and 49 seconds.
How are you going to say it like that? The champion from Just 5? He's just the champion, bro.
But he is from Just 5 Guys. That's his faction. I wasn't trying to bury him.
He wasn't actually trying to diminish the title. Relax, man.
No, I'm just playing.
I wasn't burying him.
It sounded like it.
That's his faction, Just 5 Guys.
Yeah, man. This one got 10 minutes. I thought they'd get 17. Maybe I thought this was just getting like turned up, and it ended. Sonata, shockingly not over. I think he was the least over Japanese guy on the show, despite having the IWGP World Championship. I think it says a lot for Sonata having just as many opportunities as Tomohiro Ishii, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, Kota Ibushi, all these other Japanese natives, Tetsuya Naito, been in all those same G1s that were broadcast in this country, been on all those Wrestle Kingdom shows, been on all those Dominions, and then he comes out, and this is where the KIS as faithful may be upset with me here. He comes out and it sounds like a rat's pissing on cotton. I like the match still though. Poor guy. Like, let's just say that like I was hopeful for Sonata in this to have this be the match that maybe this actually breaks him out in America as somebody like, oh shit, like maybe we've like, maybe we got it wrong with this guy. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. But I thought the match was fine, but like from a star presentation, or like there were pre-show guys that were getting more reaction to him. So it was a rough one for Sonata, I think.
I didn't think it was rough for him. It's like if you're pushed like a certain level for a certain number of years, that's kind of where you are. He was always pushed like a mid-carder, and like he had mid-card performances for what is New Japan in that era, and he's here, and I really enjoyed his match. Like I thought that this is for Jungle Boy and for Sonata both. Like if either of them were more over, the crowd reacted way more to this match. I thought this match technically was very damn good, and ultimately, and the problem was the crowd wasn't emotionally invested in either one in that way, and there's a reason why Tony Khan had him lose, so that he could had Jungle Boy lose his match, so that he can go out here and get himself over by turning heel on Hook. And I have some questions about like that program from a promo perspective for Hook and Jungle Boy, really do. But it is a new direction, and like this is the best thing for them. Is like this is sink or swim moment for both of them.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, James. I thought the actual work in the match was very good. I wouldn't say that Sonata had like no reaction, but I wouldn't say he had a good reaction.
They're nuts for the Paradise Lock stuff.
Yeah, they definitely pop for that. I think that there's something where like when he was aligned with LIJ, when New Japan was at its peak popularity and he was sort of chasing after the title, he might have had more cachet and fandom in North America than he does now, being on his own, being the head of this new unit and sort of having this new persona. And even in Japan, he sort of had more support chasing after the title than he has being the actual champion. And it's going to be a big test to see how he performs with all those young dudes in that A block in the G1. That's going to kind of be like the quote unquote real test. But if this match with Jungle Boy was any sort of indication of what that's going to be like, it's going to be the old adage that we've always said about Sonata, the guy that can wrestle up to the level of his competition, but is never able to bring lesser competition up to his level. And I'm not saying that to diminish Jungle Boy, because I think Jungle Boy is a fantastic wrestler. But what I mean is, in terms of star power, this wasn't a performance where he elevated himself or Jungle Boy in the process. That being said, in terms of technical wrestling, this was vastly superior to the first two singles matches on the main card, but it didn't get the same kind of reactions from the crowd. And then the abruptness of the finish, because so many people probably weren't even aware that the Muda Moonsault is like a quasi secondary finish of Sonata's. They didn't react for it. I thought the story was fine. It was kind of a story where Jungle Boy just wasn't on the IWGP champion Sonata's level and couldn't really hang with him, and he got beat decisively and clean, which necessitated his turn. So I thought from that aspect, it was a good story, but it didn't do any favors for either guy in terms of like live crowd reaction. So, I mean, it is what it is. I do think that in a different world, if Sonata had been given perhaps a more marquee name, maybe we'd be talking about him having that breakout performance, but I just don't think he's the guy that can bring a lesser known talent up to a higher standard or a higher level, because he can't do that for himself, really.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we've been kind of predicting on KISS. You know, everybody's asking, you know, do you think Sonata's going to be champion going to Forbidden Door or going to G1? And, you know, before Dominion, we were like, there's no way he's going to go to Forbidden Door as champion, because he's just not that over in the U.S. We thought the belt was going to go to Naito or Okada, somebody who the U.S. fan base knows, who's, you know, very over here in the West, and that wasn't the plan, and we saw what happened. You know, I don't think the reactions were quote-unquote terrible, like Dave Meltzer said, but they weren't, you know, superstar. They weren't a crowd reaction for a IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. There was a crowd reaction for a mid-card guy. And I had a buddy of mine who's
somebody they knew, but not someone they loved.
Right. And I had a buddy of mine who's like a lapsed New Japan fan texting me through the show. He's like, oh, you know, what's going on with Sonata? He's not an LIJ anymore. And like, so if you haven't been watching New Japan, people are kind of like, all right, you know, yeah, I remember Sonata and LIJ, but you know, what's this Just Five Guys thing? Different look? Like, what's going on? And then, like you said, Josh, like people are not familiar with the Buddha Moonsault being one of his finishers. I know usually it's the Skull End and now the Deadfall, but he does occasionally win matches with the Buddha Moonsault. And to me, like Rich was saying, like the match was really, I thought, like kind of hitting that next gear. And then he hits the moonsault and it was over. And it was kind of a flat finish because the crowd didn't see it coming. It was kind of like, and so for me, like I thought the work, like the technical work was good, but like you were saying, Josh, earlier, like a hot crowd can help a match. I think a lukewarm crowd can also hurt a match. And so for me, it kind of hurt the match in that regards.
Post-match, Sonata takes the title, goes to the back, gets his hand raised, and then you see Jungle Boy getting walked to the back with his best friend, quote-unquote, Hook, and, you know, Hook's trying to console him. He raises his hand, and then right in that moment, boom, he turns, gives him the clothesline, drops him on the ground, and very, very shocking. Everyone was kind of calling for this to happen. Obviously, I think a lot of people were sort of thinking that they might slow roll this and maybe play it out over a long period of time. And it's like, no, they're going right with it, like almost immediately. Taz on the call was hilarious, talking about how, like, you know, he's trying to stay impartial, but he's like, you just made the biggest mistake of your life.
Dude, yeah, Taz.
That's who's going to do the talking.
Taz is wilding out.
What I think is funny about this, though, and I'm fine with these two young guys going out there and having an establishing feud between one another. That's cool and everything. But I do think it's funny that, like, Jungle Boy's whole thing is that he's been chasing a singles title. He can't win a singles title. So now they're going to have him chase the FTW title. That's not a real title, bro.
Josh, I said this on the show last week. It's like he's going after a unsanctioned, unrecognized belt. And like then Rich was like, he asked that he stumbled across genius. This man said it's just because it's a failure to win. It's like, yes, that's right, FTW. Failure to win. Like, so when he's going to be after, so because he can't win any singles belt on his own that's actually recognized by AEW, he will now like go after and chase after and potentially capture the failure to win belt. Excellent.
Go after Zack Ryder's internet title next. You know,
I would like to see that match actually.
Look up Ted DiBiase Jr. See if he's still got that $1 million title. Find one of those shits.
Collects all like the non like sanctioned titles.
Yeah, the PWGP Tam Nakano Panda belt too. Go get that one.
Jesus.
Call up John Juris, get that GUW title.
get the
the tag team partner. We need those Young Bucks Super Kick titles also.
Yeah.
Hey, does Jared still have those Global Force belts?
Probably. Along with the gold. Global Force Gold.
Man, none of these belts matter.
Gold. Hey, man, we have not killed him about that shit. This man was something. Never mind. We're going to be digression. Sorry.
Get the FTR titles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Beat Floyd for it.
Go win the ROH titles. Those titles don't matter either.
Damn. Oh, man.
Yo, Josh, log out of the call and log back in because like your video is like way behind. I don't know what happened.
On the stream?
Yeah.
It's been like that for a while, like on my screen, but like looking at it on the Twitch, it looked perfectly fine. That was odd, but yeah.
And now you guys have swapped names. Amazing.
Nah, bro, switch that. Yeah, switch that. I'm not Josh Smith. Don't do this to me.
Deeply embarrassed.
Well, let's move on to the next matchup here. We had the elite trio of Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks teaming with Eddie Kingston and the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii, and they defeated the Blackpool Combat Club of Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta, who were also teaming with Konosuke Takeshita and Shota Umino. Rich, take it away.
Man.
Taking the fucking mic out of the stand.
Tomohiro Ishii at last gets a big W. Tomohiro Ishii aligns with the Elite. Loved it, the whole thing with Eddie Kingston. I thought this match was absolutely sensational. 5 stars for me on this. I thought this was like almost a in-match competition of I ain't no bitch. No, oh, I ain't no bitch. No, I ain't no bitch. No, I ain't no bitch. And all these guys were just in a circle, just trading it around. Whether it was Takeshita knocking the shit out of Ishii, whether it was Ishii just like facing off with whoever, Moxley and Kingston and their big chop thing. Hangman Page, the way he hit the ring like a ball of fire, the kicks he was throwing and the strikes. And it was just like, there's so much snap in what he does. And I was like on Twitter in all caps saying, Tony Khan, re-sign Hangman Page right now. Like, I thought this was a classic. Like people, we saw a couple weeks of Collision. We saw the main event, multi-man match, nice matches that happened. And I think people, lost their minds a little bit. The Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite, plus a couple additions, had to readjust and show what a multi-man tag match, like what a great one is. It was this one right here. And this was just, this was crazy, man. I think Takesha's got it totally figured out already because, of course, he does. And this is just one of the coolest matches, I think, that you'll find with this many people in it.
So, the people that will come out here and tell you that the Young Bucks are just high spot merchants and can't tell stories, they're down by like 150 points. This match had so many layers of awesome stuff of telling you between like and he also give you programs of future you want to see, like giving you Ishii and Takeshi that you want to see, make you want to see Eddie Kingston and Claudio again, make you want to see and figure out the resolution or want to see like what's going to happen in the fallout between Eddie Kingston and Moxley over the part where like Kingston hates Claudio's guts. This was so fun. This was so fun. And like, even like the little layer where you don't know exactly like the intention of Eddie Kingston and like what they're going to do with like this double super kick they end up hitting Kingston when he tried to either go after Moxley or try to save him because he's conflicted. You don't know which way it was, but he ended up getting that. Like, that's also added to what's going to happen in the future with him. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, the Young Bucks are some of the best in-ring storytellers in the history of this business. And people think that they're just fucking goofballs.
They should just be disregarded.
It's
like they should be allowed to just walk from the company.
And the idea that they laid out that match where they have Kingston and Moxley, they get the crowd up after they tease it first, and Moxley asked out, and then they get back in and they start just trading big chops and shots with each other. And as it's happening, everybody's hitting big dives out to the floor while Kingston and Moxley are still in the ring, brawling out because of like, we're giving you like, this was like a perfect example of like what AEW, a snapshot of what AEW gives you. Like, it can give you heated personal stuff, the drama and the emotion and all of that stuff. And it can also give you spectacularness from all the dives on the floor that was happening. And like, that's like a, whatever gift you want to make of that, like those should be chopped up and be like, this is AEW. How the fuck do you not like this?
Yeah.
And claim that you like all these things that all the other wrestling does or whatever else. Is like, this is giving you all of it. It's a gigantic variety. And even sometimes happens at the same time in the same match with 10 people. It was awesome.
You know, speaking to that whole aspect about them not telling great stories, I mean, this is peeling back the curtain a little bit, but like, I've been told on record by numerous people that work for that company that even though they aren't technically quote unquote agents, some of the greatest matches in the history of that company's promotion have been agented by by the Young Bucks, specifically Nick, more so than anybody else. Like, Nick is supposed to be, from what I've been told by numerous people, simply one of the greatest minds when it comes to psychology and laying out a match, and he's like a virtuoso at it. But they'll never get the credit for that.
It's not hard for me to believe because I see his matches.
Right.
Like, can you believe that Shawn Michaels can sometimes be good at telling people what to do in their wrestling matches?
But the thing is, like, okay, you can see their
match.
You can see their matches, and their matches are great, but they understand other people's characters and what gets other people over and how other people work their matches. And they've laid out some of the best matches of some of, you know, how there's these other camps in wrestling.
Right.
They've laid out matches for some of the people that are on the other side that people are like, they're not like the Bucks. They're great. Well, the Bucks have many times laid out your favorite matches for the people that you like that are supposed to be the antithesis of these guys. They're geniuses when it comes to professional wrestling. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's not all just flips. They understand the psychology of wrestling. They're some of the greatest storytellers that have ever been in the business.
And the E in AEW, y'all know what the fuck it stands for.
Elite.
This match was incredible. I'm not going to recover everything that you guys mentioned, but I mean, there were other things here too. Like obviously Ishii got the big pin over Wheeler Yuta. I think that Wheeler Yuta probably of everybody in this match got the least reaction of anybody, but that kind of is hard to sort of achieve because he's not as white hot as he was, you know, a year ago. But as a young guy, now he's got kind of this lofty goal in New Japan over with Ishii to potentially maybe that's a thread that he could, you know, try to chase down. I know you guys already talked about Takeshita and Ishii, but those two guys seemed like they had something against one another all throughout the match because they were like magnets. They just kept coming back to one another. And that was sort of like, you know, when did you ever think you'd see, you know, Konosuke Takeshita from DDT fight Tomohiro Ishii? Like that seems so unbelievable, but it happened.
For me.
Yeah. With the dive spots, like it's incredible that Nick Jackson can still with such precision hit these very convoluted rope walking, you know, twisting spots to the outside and never get hurt. And he's been doing it, you know, for all these years. It's really crazy. Hangman was awesome. Hangman was incredible in this match. Everybody in this match, it was magic. Like this is one of the greatest 10-man tags ever. Right up there with, you know, the Hart Foundation in at the Canadian Stampede. Right up there with the famous 10-man tags from Michinoku Pro in the 90s. It's up there with all that shit. Dragon Gate, some of the LIJ 10-man tags. It's just as good as all that shit.
I think the only way it could have been better, even if it was elimination style, like over the top rope, like especially this being an AEW New Japan show, I think they could have stood to do the elimination style.
Yeah,
I was surprised. I was surprised they didn't brawl around the arena, which is in the MO.
Well, they just did it at the last pay-per-view, so they probably like, cut it out. We don't need to do that all the time. Even though you know Mox would have been like, "Oh hell yeah, brother, I get the blade."
Exactly. They didn't blade. They didn't brawl on the outside. They didn't use very many weapons. They just had a pure, beautiful wrestling match. It was incredible.
Jeremy was trying to jump in. Jeremy, what do you think it is?
Yeah, man, this match was awesome. You know, a lot of people will come out here and say, yeah, these group of wrestlers don't know how to tell stories. You know, everybody's pointing to the bloodline right now and talking about how it's cinema and there's such, you know, great, they need to win an Emmy. There's such great story. It's such great psychology. And I'm like, man, look at this match. Like, there were so many threads weaved in this match. The Elite and the rivalry with the Blackpool Combat Club. Eddie Kingston, his relationship with Jon Moxley, how much he hates Claudio Castagnoli. Then you have, you know, Konosuke becoming heel now, and he's kind of feuding with the Elite. You have Shota Umino, who's still like coming into his own and trying to build his rep. You know, he's going into his first G1. He's been having this heated feud with Okada. He wants to beat Okada so bad. And when Umino's with Mox in the Blackpool Combat Club, he gets this edge. He gets more arrogant, more cocky, and we see a more aggressive side of him. So that was in the story right there. He's trying to live up to the guys that he's teaming with. So there's just so many pieces. And of course, you have Ishii, who told us in Dallas he just loves to smash. You can sign for any match. He just wants to, you know, hit somebody in the face. And so like all this magic just came together, and it was wonderful. Konosuke knocking Ishii into the Shadow Realm. that man sold that so great. I
heard it was real.
Oh wow! Well,
I heard he got knocked loopy for real.
Well, it was an incredible shot, and then Hangman, the discus elbow to Konosuke when he was running in, sent him to the Shadow
They need
Realm.
that rematch too.
Yeah, like they set a stage here. There's so many singles matches alone that they can do from this feud. And you know, Kingston's doing more he's doing G1, he's doing more New Japan stuff too. So there's a story there as well. Like this match was just so well laid out, so incredible. Great moves, great storytelling, great psychology. Like, and of course, you have like 10 of the best wrestlers in the world in one matchup. And what do you expect? Like, this was awesome.
Incredible.
And friend of the show, Kevin Crawford, said, how hard did you pop when Ishii won for Team Elite? And, you know, we were watching with Jamie, and we already knew when Ishii got the pin, like, Rich's voice message is coming through. Like, turn your phone up.
You know,
I thought Ishii at one point when he hit the stalling suplex from the second rope, I thought he was going to do the brainbuster from up there. I was like, oh shit, but he didn't do it.
yeah, man, it was so cool. I think that's probably Ishii's like defining win, like in the United States, possibly, you know. And it's just such a cool moment for, you know, all of us that have loved Ishii for all these years, and then we get to see him, you know, being the one to pin somebody finally, like, and you know, he doesn't really get to win, you know, the IWGP title. He doesn't get to win the Intercontinental title or nothing like that. But winning a match this damn good, hard to beat.
Yo, remember when he thought he was a former WWE champion?
No.
He got interviewed one time. They were talking about WWE. He's like, I wrestled there. I was champion there. And they're like, no, you were champion in Ring of Honor. And he's like, it was in America. He didn't know what WWE was. He was like, I was champion in America. I thought, is that not the same?
Also, a question here from Ethan says, do you think Shota will eventually end the Moxley aspects of his gimmick and become more of his own character?
What's the rush?
I'm sure it's coming, but it feels like there's money in that program as well.
Down the line, a couple years from now.
I don't see any reason to go away from it immediately. You know, eventually he will, you know, he'll be who he's going to be one day, but one day ain't today. And you can take advantage of like the Blackpool Combat Association to keep him over when he comes to the United States, so he doesn't end up like Sonata, like, and it'd be like, you know, just showing up in his mid-30s, and then everybody's like, who gives a fuck? Like, but
it's not gonna happen. They're not gonna book him like a mid-carder for 8 years.
Just saying, like, you know, you assign these guys like with these guys from AEW, and it's like they have these stories to call back upon. They have these associations, and that alone will work in programs in Japan or America, as popular as like all these, like, you know, people seem to be, and as well booked as these companies are at times.
Yeah, I'm with Rich. Like I think the thing that, like, last year when people were complaining about there being too many factions in AEW, like the part where I just got lost on it, it was like, I'm sorry, I thought the people that were making this complaint mostly are people that talk about like they like the not match stuff part of wrestling, which is like, okay, so you're saying get rid of the human element of these people have had wars, spilt blood, shed tears, and broke bones with each other, and then people fall out or whatever else, or like you get the easy idea of why are these people in the ring fighting? Because one of these people don't like the other person in this ring, and like these are all cliques, and like they're protecting their own. Like when Moxley said to Kingston on last Wednesday, that line when he's like, you know, I was always told like you protect the people that stand behind you, you respect the people that stand beside you, and you go up against the people that stand in front of you. Like, that's it. John Moxley again, understanding pro wrestling better than everybody else. Like, that's the human connection. All you idiots talk about, oh, AEW just wrestling matches or Japanese wrestling, just all wrestling matches. No, the human element of these people have ups and downs in their relationships, and that carries the emotion for why people are compelled to watch the wrestling. just like anything else. The bloodline, what do you think that is?
When a few weeks ago, I was talking with Rich and we were kind of discussing the BCC versus Elite storyline, and I kind of likened something that up to this point I felt was lacking in the feud was that there wasn't that Four Horsemen-esque feel to it. And what I mean by that is like in the 80s when the Four Horsemen were feuding with like, say, Nikita and Dusty and, you know, the list goes on, Sting, Luger, whoever, they would have these big multi-man tag matches and you could throw a bunch of guys in there and there'd be all these, you know, converging story threads. And then the match would end, and yeah, the match would end, but it wouldn't be decisive in the sense of like they put to rest all the stories. Instead, they could branch everything off of it, and it would continue to grow, and they do business.
Right.
And I was like, they're not really doing enough of that with this, and the potential's there. In this match, they did that, and now it's like, damn, there's so many things they could potentially do coming out of it, and it's really awesome. And it is one of the things that was lacking in last year's Forbidden Door, where like it was a cool showcase show, but there wasn't enough, you know, converging of storylines. Now the stage is set for all sorts of stories across both brands. It's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, Blood and Guts is coming up at some point this summer.
Yeah. The rumor is July that the Boston TD Garden show is where Blood and Guts is going to be.
Okay.
Hopefully they do it right this time.
Let's move on to the next matchup here. The AEW Women's World Title match, as the champion Toni Storm defended against the NJPW Strong Women's Champion Willow Nightingale. Toni got the win, 10 minutes and 27 seconds.
As the resident expert on women's wrestling for the Social Suplex Podcast Network, I'll start off. You know what? I've been a big fan of Willow, especially what I saw from her recently in that tournament in New Japan Strong. I felt like we got to see more of what she's capable of doing in that tournament. And if you read a lot of the reports, some of the stuff she's been doing over in ROH has also been very impressive. Obviously, the crowds love her. And it's very interesting to see her go in there with Toni Storm, who, you know, Toni, the first time she was champion, had her run, it was fine. She had some good matches, but it didn't feel like she kind of found herself as a performer. She didn't feel like she had that star aura that she had when she was in Stardom or even like NXT UK. This run, she feels more defined as a character. She definitely feels like a bigger deal. And that really translated here in this match. And what I loved about it was, like, obviously at the end of the day, Toni was picking up the win. So they gave 90% of the match to Willow. And it kind of was a situation where, like, yeah, Toni beat her, but Toni, like, kind of had to survive her and basically deal with her never-ending onslaught until finally she found an opening and a way to cheat, and then was able to, you know, hit her pile driver to pick up the 1-2-3. The crowd probably wasn't into this match as much as they should have been, considering how hot the match prior to this was, but the work was impeccable. The match was, I thought this was one of the better AEW women's title matches that they've done on pay-per-view. Personally, I thought it was very, very good. One has to wonder what this might have been hypothetically if Mercedes had been in this spot, which has been very much alluded to. But I loved the match. I thought it was really good.
Rich, James?
James?
Yeah, I thought this match was good, and I thought this match was better than the crowd reaction it got. But like I said, some of these matches got offered up for sacrifices, intermission breaks. And with Toni Storm, I feel like she in the ring, she has had matches. She has had some very good matches and even a couple great matches in AEW, but it feels like she's rounding into form as a regular, getting more consistent time to have matches. And like, she's having like a certain level of quality in the matches that like you, cause she's getting a lot of reps at this point right now with the Outcast thing. And like, she's has to be the workhorse for that particular faction, and she's holding up her end. But yeah, her and Willow, I thought told a very simple story. Babyface is overpowering, and the more experienced wrestler has to scrap and claw and find openings, and with the help of her friends, try to cheat. And even when she gets kicked out, finds another opening, gets out of there with the W, comes out the back door with it, and gets out of there. Yeah, good match.
I measure a lot of these some of these the AEW women's title matches by the energy that I kind of feel from it. Sometimes I'll see these shows and then it'll be like, oh shit, here comes like, are they going to ruin, the momentum of the show or something like that? Because, let's keep it a bean. Like, they'll have like people in there and it's like, and it's like the crowd is giving it the quiet respect, the quiet claps, like just like, all right, we wish it was better. We like the wrestlers, but it's just not going that way. I don't think this was one that we had to worry about like that. Right. I think Toni Storm and Willow have been circling each other, and Willow's really coming a long way. Of course, she was recently called out by Julia for the New Japan Strong belt. Told her to show up to Cork and Hall July 4th. So she's, obviously had a match for Mercedes Moné. I question beating her here. She did like kind of get cheated, but I think the fans of AEW are starting to really buy in on Willow Nightingale more than just like when she first showed up, it was like, just maybe it was a little bit on Twitter and it was like, oh, why don't you do something more with her and all that. But now I think she's putting in like the performances to match it, to be like, all right, we'll set someone up long for you to get there. And she's quickly like rising up, my ranks.
Yeah, I really enjoy this match, and I definitely agree to Josh's point that the work in this match was better than the crowd reactions that they were getting. And also, again, this kind of goes back to the kind of the cons of doing the buffer style booking. They had to follow that incredible elite BCC multi-man match. Had you done a more, New Japan style, booking layout like this would have been earlier on the card, probably would have gotten a better reaction and would have elevated the match. But regardless of that, I still thought this was a very fun match, very hard-hitting. Like you guys are saying, Willow's coming into her own right now, riding a big wave of momentum, defeating Mercedes Moné and winning the Strong Women's Championship and doing big things. And so, yeah, it seems like it's going to be her and Julia at one of the Independence Day shows coming up for New Japan Strong in Japan. So that's going to be a great, opportunity for her. And, yeah, she's kind of taking, fate kind of happened with Moné getting injured and kind of taking the spot, and she's running with it. And very hard-hitting match. Love the Death Valley driver onto the apron, and just really kind of showed her, her almost like a never style kind of matchup from her with the big, lariats and kind of her offense. So yeah, really fun matchup, and looking forward to seeing, how this story is going to evolve and what else Will is going to do in the future.
We can get deep into the whole, stuff with Julia when we do our preview next week for the July 4th stuff. But one has to wonder, if we're going to do that, then why did we create this belt in the first place when they already have? We'll save it for next week. It doesn't make sense.
I was told that they need it, Josh. That's Oh man. Well, it's time. Let's talk about
do it.
The IWGP United States Heavyweight Title Match. The aerial assassin Will Ospreay defeats the best bout machine Kenny Omega. 39 minutes, 50 seconds. New champion. Big title change here.
Man. Okay, let's get out of the way. How many of us like the first match better? Raise our hands. Cool.
Oh.
This is cool. We've addressed it. Let's move on. Now, the next thing. Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega came out here and had a match 99.5% as good as the one they had January 4th. This shit right here was brutal. This was classic storytelling of like national pride was in there. insane moves, dangerous moves, double juice. This was absolutely sensational. I'm just gonna say it was a fucking insult not to put them on last. So you deserve what you got for the rest of this show. And it was like, we've got so many questions on this, about the performers and their standing and all that. I think this is the greatest match in AEW history, greatest singles match at least. Depends how you feel about the Revolution tag. We can debate that another day. Can you get in the room? I think this one firmly gets in the room. This was just like the crowd going insane. Everyone got to shut the fuck up now, right? Like you would think.
No, they don't stay quiet for long.
Like they gotta shut the fuck up. Oh man, why did Kenny beat Will? The crying, the hand wringing for Kenny Omega not showing up to New Japan Road. I'm sorry, he didn't make the tour. I'm sorry. Why? Because we ended up with shit like this. And now Will Ospreay gets the belt back, and he can continue being the fucking man like he is. Like this was just like had me sitting here like, this is why I love pro wrestling, because of matches like this. Sensational guys that will put their fucking like lives on the line for us and the check. And it's like, I can't believe the detractors of both of these guys. I just hope that they are ready for the Observer Awards, Sports Illustrated, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the One Nation Radio Awards, Keepin' It Strong Style Awards. I just hope everyone's prepared for the 1-2 finish. And if they run it again, what's stopping them from going 1, 2, 3? I'm tired of these niggas. People. I heard it all in the build up. Danielson Okada. I love both of those guys, but I'm like, yo, there are so many reasons to put these guys on last. This is disrespectful, I feel like, and I'm getting loud, and I'm getting excited over here right now. But brother, tell us when, tell us like we saw it.
Tell Rich when he's telling
you. You're trying so hard not to do the tell me when I'm telling lies.
Where's the lie?
Okay. That's what it felt like it was going, but okay.
But like, Will gets to, from the booking standpoint, Will gets to win. It's 1-1. They could stop it here if they wanted to, which I don't think is going to happen, but they could. They were very cordial to each other on Twitter afterwards. But this shit here was just like, it's when the timeline has to all like readjust. The shit that was, all the selling out, they got to stop. They got to sell it another day, because on this day we saw who the truth was. Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega. Throw the stars, baby.
Really loved this match. While I was watching it, I was very much sort of like, okay, this match is very personal. It's even in some ways more violent than what was a very violent January 4th match between these two guys. But I did feel like it was levels below what we had seen on January 4th for the majority of the match. And I was like, well, it's okay. That's a level that they probably just can't reach again, possibly, and that's all right. But then Don Callis gets involved, and the screwdriver spot, and then everything like that. And then we got these two near falls that were two of the greatest near falls that I've ever seen in my life. And when Kenny got hit with the one-winged angel and kicked out at one, the crowd erupted, and I was like, oh my God, all right, here we go. And then suddenly I felt like this match, even though I liked the January 4th match better, I think the peak and the closing sequences of this match are hotter than the January 4th match, and kind of bring it to a closer level. Even if I liked the overall work of January 4th more, the close of this is hotter than the January 4th matches. And it was really, really impressive how they were able to just continuously build and build that anticipation. And then he hits Kenny Omega with the Stormbreaker. You think it's over. and Kenny gets the foot up on the rope, and I was like, oh my God, how did I not see that? He's right by the fucking ropes.
These were like two of the greatest kickouts I've ever seen back to back. Like off the screwdriver hit, and then the one wing angel one count.
There was other great stuff in the beginning of the match though, where like Ospreay had been brutalized in the first match. He was more aware of what was prepared for him this time, and he wanted to basically serve some of that back to Kenny. Both guys did double juice. There was the spot where they were at the table and he's bashing Kenny's head through the wood barrier, just like he'd been done back in January by Kenny. There was the spot on the stairs where Kenny lifted him up and dropped him like a
DDT.
It was implant DDT, or
implant DDT, which was a callback to the spot on the turnbuckle on the January 4th match, which busted open Will.
Yep.
And then there was a lot of stuff too. There was other like little callbacks, like little love letters to like Pancrase and to Inoki versus Ali, which like there was just a lot of like little nuanced.
There was also a touch of a little love letter to King's Road too. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, there was definitely some of that. It was funny. We were watching it and they were hitting the Kawada kicks, and my girlfriend's brother's like the koala kicks. No, but like he was just being funny, but it was kind of hilarious. But the match was a lot bloodier than the match they had prior. In some ways, more physical. Really
sliced off half his forehead.
Yeah, Will's blade job was really deep. The two things that I think I would address that I'm not sure that I loved. One, Don Callis, I liked the aspect where he got involved in the match and handed off the screwdriver. I like the screwdriver spot. I didn't understand the necessity of him having this weird, the security guys with the giant heads and the Bane faces or whatever. Like, they didn't even serve a purpose. They didn't do much to even facilitate anything. I get it. They were there to kind of like protect Don Callis, and they were under the auspices of like protecting Will from the belligerent crowd, but it just kind of felt a little convoluted. They didn't necessarily need to be there. And at one point Don had gotten kicked out of the match, but then he came back and the referee didn't do anything about it, which was kind of like that
it's an IWGP title match.
Which, throwing that in there, we didn't even get like the IWGP. Just they let Paul Turner do the officiating. Red Shoes was in town.
Yeah, look at that.
Well, that was that.
And then the other thing too with it, obviously, we got to talk about it. Down the stretch, Will Ospreay hit a Tiger Driver 91 on Kenny Omega. Kenny did take a drop directly on his head. I don't want to like sit here and like wag my finger at them and tell them how stupid they are. Obviously, that's an extremely dangerous spot. I think that after 30 plus minutes of wrestling, the way Kenny landed directly on his head, free fall. I don't think that was planned to happen that way. Typically, you take that move somewhat on your head, but mostly on the back of your neck. I think that it was probably somewhat of a botch and very, very scary, very dangerous. I would say the match didn't necessarily need that, but at the end of the day, these are two athletes that know what they're in for. They know what they agreed to, and shit happens. But I didn't love that spot. But other than that, we're talking about 5-star plus match, one of the greatest matches of the year, and maybe the greatest singles match in AEW history.
Yeah, this match was absolutely incredible. 5 stars, like we said. I'll see overall, I like the January 4th match better, but again, for these guys to come out here and pretty much match the same energy and same level of what they did on January 4th was just incredible. These are two of the best professional wrestlers out there today, two of the best wrestlers of a generation. Like, we're going to remember these guys for years and years to come. And yeah, I could list out all the moves, but you guys saw the match. Like, the work was just incredible. The storytelling. Two guys that are pegged as, high spot, flip monkeys, just moves, baby moves guys. They went out here again and told a great story. I like the touch of, Will Ospreay continuing to use the aerial assassin moniker in music to face Kenny Omega. And, he could have gone back to the, the United Empire look in music and Commonwealth Kingpin, but he wanted to prove that the aerial assassin could beat Kenny Omega, because that was a guy that Kenny left New Japan's hands in, was the aerial assassin. And so I thought that was some great storytelling aspect there. Also, both guys, Kenny coming out the Devil's Sky, like,
forgot that.
Yeah, like the New Japan music just like really like set the stage. And Ospreay using Elevated. So much great stuff here in the match. And I agree with you, Josh. I wasn't a huge fan of Don Callis like getting kicked out and coming back in. Like that's a little bit of like the kind of the Western wrestling flair for me that I'm like, we don't really need that in this kind of matchup. But it did work out with handing off the screwdriver. And maybe they could have done that a little bit cleaner, but it got the job done. And yeah, I popped huge for the One Wing Angel 1 count near fall, and then the foot on the ropes with the Stormbreaker. Yeah, these guys, it was a masterpiece, man. Like the wrestlers coming up today are going to be studying these series of matches for years and years to come to see, like, you want to see what a great, blow them out the park pro wrestling match looks like. You watch and study this. Maybe don't study the Tiger Driver part, but you watch this whole matchup and you see a masterpiece being told here.
But maybe not the DDT on the exposed top turnbuckle either.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, I thought this match was incredible. I think this match is at worst second best match I've seen this year. I still put their first match at number 1. It more fits my sensibilities of what I want to watch out of pro wrestling. Like, as Josh and Jeremy had pointed out, like the interference stuff with Callis. I enjoy Callis as being a foil for Kenny Omega in programming the storyline and also what he brings to the other people that will eventually face Omega in the future. But as far as like once the bell rings, I want him the fuck away from the ring. So that's one thing about it. And then like the part where he gets kicked out and he comes right back with no repercussion whatsoever. In fact, he's able to grab the ref and then take fucking 30 seconds to reach to his pocket and hand him the screwdriver to get it out. Like this wasn't as bad, but it's like it gave me the idea of like, remember how long it took Heyman to get those handcuffs off of Roman Reigns? And he's handcuffed in that last man standing match. It was bordering on that. That's how long he was reaching into his pocket to grab a fucking screwdriver. Anyway, outside of that, I thought the inverted story of, Ospreay gets put through that table in these bleeding buckets in the Tokyo Dome. And basically from there, like there's no hope for him except to get at the last moment a couple hope spots in and try to change momentum. But mostly it's basically academic after that. When Ospreay starts bashing Omega's head into those thin things that make a hell of a lot of noise on these announce tables, it looked devastating. And Omega was bumping and selling them without like putting a hand up. He was just going into him like he was a crash test dummy, it to great effect. And he looked devastated, and he was getting his ass handed to him. And it was time for the Os Cutter, and it's about to start getting dark for Omega. And then when Rich, Jeremy,
he finally did it.
Y'all know one of my favorite things in watching pro wrestling is like someone has signature moves and like they get desperate or they get caught in position, and the only thing they can do is hit like a lesser, like makeshift version of their move. So like I love when Kenny Omega does like the standing high knee strike. That's basically like I'm too exhausted to give a V trigger, so I just throw up the knee. And like it reminds me of like when you have AJ Styles, he gets somebody up in a position that he like, I can't turn all the way over into a Styles clash. I can only get one leg hook and I drop him. Or like when you get, Naito in the air and he turns to a makeshift Destino. Like I'll always pop for that shit. It always works. It always is the level of thought to be put into this thing. And he got back into the match, and you have Callis with the screwdriver, and with the screwdriver, Ospreay's covering Omega's head, and everybody in the building knows what's happening to him except for Omega. And he gets hit with that thing. He gets fucking spiked, and he goes up. He gets him up, and Ospreay goes for the Os Cutter, and I'm next to Jeremy. I'm sitting next to Jeremy, and like his with Oscutter, I didn't say anything, but I was like, he's close to the ropes, but I don't know if that was an accident or on purpose. And he gets the leg. I was like, okay, he got legs up, and then he got him immediately. And actually, no, I take it back. He kind of like, wait, what? And he goes towards Callis, and Callis whispers something in his ear, and he grabs arms as a Kamigaye, and then he gets him up for the Warning Angel. And as he hits it, Jeremy, tell me when I'm telling lies. I say out loud, he's gonna kick. I think he's gonna kick one. He kicked a fucking one, and I was like, yes. I have watched so much some of the highest level of pro wrestling that I now can predict the greatest kick out of one in the history of the business. Yes. I have reached clear now. I'm on a whole new level. I was so happy when they kicked out at one. I was like, that's exactly what I expected to happen. But then the match continued, and it was great, man. It was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And look, they're probably gonna have another one. It's gonna be awesome. But for me right now, through two matches, I've enjoyed this series of matches more than the first two Okada and Omega matches, because I did not love that draw that they did in two. But yeah, these are incredible matches, and yeah, they're easily 1 and 2 for me of matches I've seen this year in all the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, and we had some
unbelievable
questions here. Let's run through these quickly so we can get to the last two matches. First from Ethan in Discord, he says, "Is this the conclusion to Omega and Ospreay's rivalry? And who do you see beating Ospreay in the G1 to challenge for the U.S. title?"
I don't want to jump into the G1 stuff. I think we could probably discuss that at a later time because it's too much for right now. But I'm hoping they do another match. But this could be it. I mean, it's very plausible. But I'm hoping they do a third one. I am also waiting to see, we haven't heard anything about Kenny's current condition, and that was a very dangerous drop, and we've seen people take drops like that and have complications. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping, come Wembley time, we can see it a third time.
One thing I want to mention, like in regards to the neck thing, or him getting dropped with the Tiger Driver 91. Look, that was a nasty one. Even by the standards of anybody with a crazy neck, whether you want to bring out Mayu Watani or Kota Ibushi, that was a nasty one. Like when you stopped it frame by frame, he doesn't just land and compress on his head and neck at a 90-degree angle. It's at like an 80-degree angle. It's nasty. And like this ain't this ain't no 180, 190 pound dude. This ain't the most flexible woman that's ever stepped in a fucking wrestling ring either. Like, this is a dude that is jacked to the gills, and maybe some of that padding spared him or whatever else. But who knows? Like, that's a buff neck dude. You know what I'm saying?
Buff neck?
So, yeah.
And the thing,
one thing, move past that. But man, look, man, he my concern for Kenny Omega is that, one, I don't think he needed that match. I don't think that spot would have made that or makes that match better if it was not in there. They chose something else, right? But like, I have this constant concern for Kenny Omega because of like he just lasted him for like almost a year just recently, right? And like I think of like some of the bumps he's taken in AEW, like when he's that match he had with Trent where he lands high on his neck on some superplex thing or whatever else in one of those Georgia shows during the pandemic. I still remember like the Vikingo not Dragon Rana, the top rope
Hurricanrana.
Hurricanrana got turned into a Hurricanrana. He landed on his neck nasty there too. I'm just like, hey man, you too old to be taking these kind of nasty bumps, bro. Like,
he's got Vikingo next week, right?
Well, bro, it gets serious. He's fighting Vikingo next week.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just like, hey man, you just came back after missing like 9 months of this shit. Bro, you might want to 86 the neck bumps. Well, you might just want to.
Kawada Mizawa, and I don't want to go that way. Mizawa never broke his neck.
Well,
until he died in the ring. You know what I mean? And there was never a prior like, oh my God, he was put on the shelf for a year sort of situation with him, but it was the accumulation of those types of bumps that was his undoing. I'm not saying Kenny Omega's, maybe taken as many serious bumps as like Mizawa had, but dude, like one thing that I was talking with Rich earlier about this today, and like one thing that happened is like Will hits the mat first on his knees. And, when I was doing wrestling training, one of the things that they always like expressed, and it was very important, like if you're taking a suplex or if you're doing any kind of drills, you got to land flat at the exact same time as the person next to you, because when you don't, and I've experienced this firsthand, when someone else lands first and you're second, the mat reverbs and you hit the board as it's rebounding, and it's worse because there's nowhere for the impact to dissipate, because you're hitting it as it's coming up. Think of it like when you used to jump on the trampoline and people would pop you up. It's the same thing, but with wood, not with the trampoline. He lands second after Will hits with his knees. It's got to be fucking bad. Like there's no safe way to do what they did, where he was free fall landing and lands on his head. The only thing that could save him in a situation like that is the years and years and years of neck bridges and neck workouts that he's definitely been doing. But I am concerned about it because, it was not good.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a dangerous spot. And, we're big fans of Kenny Omega. I want to see him wrestle as long as possible. I definitely don't want a Misawa situation for him. And, yeah, it's one of those things, though. He continues to try to outdo himself and take things to a next level, and that is kind of where it gets to, is like, well, he's got to do these kind of crazy spots to continue to outdo himself.
But I don't think he actually has to. Also, another bump I'm now thinking of. Remember the nasty bump he took in the title change from him to Paige?
Yes.
He had a nasty one in that too. Like, understand, like there is, at least he has the discretion. At least he does have discretion. Well, except for the Trent, where it's like, this is going to happen, and it may go not as exactly planned, but like there's a possibility that something might happen in like one of my biggest matches of my career. So like at least he's not out here like, doing the Darby shit where he's doing this on any old random fucking Dynamite. I will give him that.
There's also the Phoenix Splash onto the exposed ring.
Yeah, that's right, against the fucking Moxley. Yeah.
The things you do to be great. Like, I am not saying don't do this stuff because he ain't gonna listen to me. He don't give a fuck. What I'm saying is, I'm saying that like I am concerned of this because like he's at that age, and we don't know how many more times he's gonna get up after some of these things. So that's my really only concern. I'm not gonna tell him how to wrestle, like, because look, clearly he knows more about wrestling than I ever will. Go ahead, run through the questions, Jeremy.
Yeah. So, Ready User, okay, 90 says, is Ospreay going to beat Kenny clean, or is their story done now?
No, it's not done. That's the same thing. It's the same thing as when he did that promo going into the G1 final last year, where he's like, look, man, I'm not delusional. I'm not going to say that like I sold out all these buildings and then I'm not even on one of these fucking cards, but he's like, hey, I have not beaten Okada on my, on a fair one. And I'm pretty sure when next match comes up, he's like, I beat you, but I didn't beat you by myself.
Yeah.
That's always going to be the hook on this.
I saw some New Japan fans crying over this because it made New Japan look weak because the New Japan guy wasn't able to cleanly beat the AEW guy, yada, yada. And I'm kind of in the middle because, I don't think this is quite as egregious as, say, for instance, the one time Ospreay beat Okada, he had to have serious run-in from like
he was doing their finishing moves.
Great O'Khan, yeah.
This isn't quite that. You know what I mean? This was something where, and I was very afraid going into the match that once Don Callis got involved this past week, I was like, oh, they might do a fuck finish. They didn't really do that. Yeah. He hit him. Yeah, he hit him with
one. They
teased one. Yeah, he cheated. But by and large, it was probably about as clean as you possibly could have gotten on a
match where someone got stabbed with a screwdriver in their forehead. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that the heel won both matches in each case, and now hopefully we get a rubber match. And who knows, maybe Will goes in as the babyface in Wembley, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm hoping that we get a definitive answer. Maybe we get 2 out of 3 falls, Iron Man match. Who knows? Something like that. I don't know.
It feels like these guys are kind of above alignment at this case, because like I don't care if they're in the UK, like the way Kenny Omega's been wrestling this year, like he wants that damn most outstanding back. Ain't nobody booing him unless he's in the United Center or some shit. Like, and Phil Brooks is standing across from him.
Yeah,
and even then,
yeah, I think you guys nailed it. Like the big key is going to be, Ospreay has to beat him clean. And I think that's going to come up in the promos, whether it's going to be at Wembley or Tokyo Dome, wherever they're going to do it. Like, Kenny's going to be like, you beat me, but did you really beat me? Like,
so when are people like imagine the timeline for when like Kenny Omega's contract ends?
Soon.
Like the end of the year. Like,
yeah.
Like what month?
I would think like October, November, something like
October,
that.
November. Like, look, man, you said it like there's nobody you can stand across the ring from and get booed. Look, bro. When the Elite versus the Bloodline happens, Survivor Series, he getting booed, bro.
Is you dumb?
I can't wait for Kenny versus Cody 3.
Oh my gosh.
You took the shit too far, man. I was fucking joking. You want to talk about some whack shit.
Sick.
Come on, man.
Sick.
Oh
I like the Kenny Cody matches.
All right, Rainbow's Slam Pig has some questions here. It says, thoughts on match of the year after last night. Ospreay vs. Omega 2 has supplanted the first as my choice. Do we get a third Ospreay vs. Omega match to close out the series, or is that story done for now after Ospreay's definitive win? And on a night with incredible matches and amazing wrestlers from top to bottom, Kenny Omega came across as the best overall wrestler on either roster, in my view. Is he a legit GOAT contender? If not, what is missing?
For me, he's in the discussion. The person that I think is number one is the person that has the series with. Like, I think that for me, the GOAT for me at this point is Okada. And after that, for me, it would probably be Kenny Omega, because of what they've done in the last 7 years. So yeah, that's for me. Now, if you want to throw out Kabashi or Misawa or Ric Flair or Shawn Michaels or Brett, I've seen more of Shawn or Brett to give you an answer on that. And for me, the answer is no. Great. Like, they're my childhood. For my particular age, it's Brett, it's Ray, and it's Shawn. But just objectively speaking, like, they are wrestling at a higher level because like the game has evolved. It is what it is, right? But yeah, that's kind of what it is for me. Those are the two for me.
I'm gonna say, like, for a long time, like, I never really just come out like in, like, you hear a lot of people get brought up like this, as James mentioned. It's like, can you be in the conversation? I think Kenny's in the conversation. I'm just gonna start beating the drum like that. He is the GOAT at this point. I think the only thing, the weakness you might add, right, would be compared to your, let's say, Danielson or Okada, they've got a couple more years. He may have a higher peak and sometimes, like, when these guys are on the cars together, Kenny's the one walking away with the accolades and the fanfare and the adulation and shit like that. So, like, I think Kenny is done. He's done it in both places, which for me is like really, it really like adds to, it was kind of like his Wrestling Observer newsletter, Hall of Fame candidacy. He was a great draw. He's a great worker in Japan, like in the toughest competition there is, brings it to America, and he's still going. Like, I think he just, like, I've never felt about a wrestler in the ring, like when I'm watching them, like how I feel about like watching Kenny Omega's matches. They're a journey every time. You don't know what's gonna happen. There's no formula. There's like there's moves. There's certain things he does like in each match, but like ultimately you're like, how's he gonna get me this time? And he always does. And you know, I just think he's the measuring stick. Like people like they have to go through him. And you can say the same thing about Okada. Like they have to go through that. But as Okada's gotten, I would say, into his mid-30s now, like the last couple years, I think it's taken him a little bit to kind of figure this out. Like as far as like the pandemic wrestling world and, you know, the challenges that he faced and coming out of that now. Could this all change? Sure. But like on this day, like for me, Kenny Omega's the GOAT.
When it comes to what makes somebody the best and what makes somebody a great wrestler, there's a lot of different criteria. There's a lot of different candidates, and we could argue, you know, till the cows come home. You know, there's a lot of different things. But one thing about Kenny Omega, and it's not the only thing, but it's the one thing I'll highlight that makes him special to me. He is the best big match wrestler that I've ever seen in my entire life. And prior to that, I would have said Shawn Michaels. I don't think Shawn Michaels is the best wrestler of his generation. There's many people from the 2000s and 2010s that I would say were better than him. But when it comes to the big stage, he's just special, and that's it. He's more special than anybody when it comes to the big stage. That's Kenny Omega. I get it. There's a lot of other great candidates, and you can list them all, your Kota Ibushis, your Okadas, your Shingos, you know, Tanahashi, you know, the list goes on. Johnny Gargano. There's plenty of names that are out there. But Will Ospreay. Bryan Danielson, AJ Styles. There's tons of them. But Kenny Omega's just special. When it comes to the big stage, he turns up bigger and better than anybody else that has ever done this. And one day somebody will, but right now there is nobody else. It's just him.
Right.
Yeah, for me, Kenny, he's definitely up there in the conversation of greatest wrestler of all time. For me, yeah, he's my GOAT. You know, I was a Shawn guy growing up, and yeah, I mean, like Josh said, like Kenny Omega, there's a reason why they call it the best bout machine. Is not just a gimmick. Like that is facts. Like this guy goes on the big stage and has the best matches, the best performances, and like, you know, you look at the Bret Hart wrestler scale, like he's near 10 in every category. Like this guy is just incredible. And as far as like match of the year for me, like I think for now I got January 4th as my 1, and this match is my 2. But I mean, ask me tomorrow, I could change my mind and flip them. But at the end of the day, my ballot, whether it's Observer Awards, ONR Awards, KISS Awards, it's going to have both these matches, 1 and 2.
Right. And the thing for me with Kenny, he is not my cup of tea as far as like what my taste is for big matches, like just in general, right? Like, but there's nobody I've ever watched succeed so many times doing something that I'm like, I'm going to the match and I'm expecting this to be the particular story, and then they go in a different direction, and it's like it, and my mind doesn't go, they didn't do what I thought they were going to do or what I wanted to do, therefore I'm going to just shit on this match. It's like that first Ospreay match in the Dome, I thought I was going to get like something more similar to like the Shingo and Ospreay matches. That was not. That was a heated, violent ass match. I fucking loved it. Like for them to go with that direction and then still succeed to that high of a level is like Kenny Omega does that. And like there's not that many wrestlers where it's like they don't go the route that I want to, and then they're able to still give me something that still like had me super happily, just completely content in what they did. So, or even over the moon for it. So yeah, like he's great, man. He's an all-time great. And it's funny seeing people like, you know, knock the Okada series or knock this stuff. And it's like, and then I hear the complaints is like, so you didn't watch these things.
Exactly.
Like almost like a year ago, I saw someone talk to me about like, or saying that they hated like that series of Ospreay and Okada because it was just choreography. And I was like, these are matches that are based off of lariats and drop kicks and running, jumping knees. What are you talking about?
You mean Okada and Omega? Someone said this.
Yes.
Okay.
I pulled up on Twitter. And yeah, that's what I meant. I meant Okada and Omega. That's like, yo, this is, I don't know what y'all talking about. I just don't.
And just looking at this 7-year period Since I would say, like I always say for me, like Kenny Omega took off in 2016
G1
in the G1, right?
Yeah.
And from there, like it's not just the Okada series. It's a series with Naito. It's what he's doing now with Ospreay. He has
Ishii.
this great match with he has 5 great matches with Tomohiro Ishii. He's had this series with Moxley that's defying the promotion. The thing with Hangman Page, it's like in this relatively short amount of time, because wrestling careers are weird. Like he's packing more in, like at a legendary level, all-time level, and his cage match page is just absolutely filthy and disgusting any way you want to look at it. And that's with people jumping on there rating his shit low sometimes just because fuck him. Like, and look, Bill's Mafia, the tag team greatness on top of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
twice.
Like this guy arguably is in the greatest singles and tag team match like that's ever happened. So it's like,
yeah,
he's him. Like
Yano matches.
You still fit?
Like
the wrestlers that have gimmicks calling themselves him. I ain't going for it.
It's Kenny, man. And I think we just answered at Morph Jin's question, why is Kenny the greatest wrestler of all time? Like I think we just
there you go.
laid a pretty good case for that. All right, let's move on to the semi-main event here. Darby Allin, Sting, Tetsuya Naito defeating Minoru Suzuki, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara 15 minutes and 9 seconds.
This went too long on a show that, as great as the show was, I felt like a lot of these matches, other than the 2 big matches and maybe the 10-man tag, they probably could have shaved a lot of time off of a lot of this show, especially this match. Again, we've already kind of litigated the whole aspect of it being the stopgap between the 2 matches, but a lot of big personalities. It was really cool to see all these guys interact with one another, but the big problem came when Sting was supposed to take a cutter from Sammy Guevara, and there was some sort of miscommunication or mistiming. Sting and Sammy landed on the top of Sting's head while Sting was bent over. It was very scary. I was having flashbacks to Sting wrestling Seth Rollins back in 2015 and was like, oh my God, we're going to see this dude, hurt again. I hope that doesn't happen. From there, the match was very kind of just, it lost its footing, became very sloppy. They tried their best to, pick everything back up. It went too long. The crowd was not into it as much as you think they would have been, considering how many big personalities were here. I did think Naito got the biggest pop of anybody coming out, but you could tell they were like trying to speed it along. They like rang the bell while Naito was still taking off his gear.
Anybody got time for that bullshit? Look, man. First off, he comes down to the ring in the full thing like he always does. And he has the full thing, but then he has the fucking t-shirt on underneath it. I was like, man. Right.
Yeah, he came out in the big match gear, and then
he had a fucking t-shirt.
Wrestled as t-shirt night.
Gotta sell that merch, pal.
Unbelievable. Ultimate trolling.
Like, if you don't just bring your ass out here with your taped up wobbly ass knees and bowed legs with your t-shirt and your hat and your trucker cap in 2023 and walk your ass down here and let's get to it. Look, to be fair, they had time to fill because the Cole match got pulled or whatever else. So maybe that's what it was. They're trying to fill some time with that. Whatever. I don't know. But I was like, hey man, you can't give me the expensive fashions, the silks. you can come out here with the silks and then give me t-shirt night. So that's bullshit.
They did a spot towards the tail end of the match where Sting was laid out on a table on the outside.
This
Chris Jericho was demanding that Sammy Guevara lay him out and follow his boss's orders. So Sammy Guevara goes to the top and he goes for 630. It was supposed to be that Sting moved out of the way, but he didn't move fast enough, so he got hit by the 630. He took the bump. But then the layout of the match called for him to be back in the ring a minute later. So
right.
Just sold the shit.
Right.
We never saw Sammy Guevara again.
And we never saw Sammy again. Sammy's laid out.
I didn't peep that was botched. I thought he just did it and he was basically doing the Sting no sell thing. So I was like, oh, he just no sell to 630. This is fucking ridiculous.
No, he didn't no sell.
Because
he didn't move out of the way.
Sammy not getting up was the giveaway. it was because it's like,
I didn't realize
why
that.
would it's like,
I
well,
didn't
why
realize
wouldn't you get up? Like, oh, you weren't supposed to hit this on him. You were supposed to eat
you ain't
shit
Sting.
and
You ain't
disappear.
Sting.
Unbelievable.
Oh man.
Sting got like that. Hey man, hit your super move. I'm just gonna get up and just continue wrestling. I don't give a fuck. Better man. Like I'll move, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who won this match.
Oh, Naito
Bro.
ended up hitting his little slick.
Oh, that's right. He hit his
Naito
Suzuki.
roll.
jackknife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matchbox cover thing, deep Matchbox cover.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, overall, kind of a fun, chaotic match. Also a lot of top stars, top personalities, but again, the whole buffer style and then following, Ospreay, Omega 2. Like, there was a lot working against this match. And like Josh mentioned, the miscommunications, the botches, and it was just kind of this kind of wild, just kind of messy matchup and kind of overstayed its welcome. I think people were kind of ready to, get to the, Bryan and Okada. But overall, it was still fun though.
Also,
go
ahead. I forgot to ask this. What do y'all think like Tetsuya Naito and Darby Allin talked about backstage?
What was the strategy meeting like?
No, just like what was it get down? How was the vibe like in that locker room? With Sting, with Clown, Sting, Darby, and Tetsuya Naito.
I'm hoping that it wasn't just them, but I'm hoping that like Shingo and Bushi and like Hiromu were there too, to just really make it weird.
Well, Hiromu's been dying the team of Mr. Sting, and so I'm sure.
Right.
I was kind of disappointed he wasn't.
I wonder if did Hiromu get to meet Mr. Sting?
I hope so.
He wore his AEW pants that he didn't get to wear last year. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe he'll do the zipper challenge with Sting.
Oh man.
Oh my God. During the media scrum,
I expect that kind of stuff from Josh, not you.
They were doing the post media scrum, and in the middle of their celebratory interview, Chris Jericho comes out angry and he hits a water bottle.
Yes,
the water bottle hits one of the media members and busts them fucking open.
John Muse.
Bro, shit. Hey, look, if that was me, oh man, I'm blind in one eye. Tony Khan, you are cutting the check. This dude let him clean him up and then sat back down. Man, if you don't go get you this goddamn money, this performer injured me.
Oh man, another scrum debacle there.
But it looks like Tuesday we're getting a tag match, and we're gonna get Painmaker Chris Jericho opposite of Sting, and I feel like this is the appropriate time to mention all the similarities between these two men. We haven't brought it up on the air, but two guys that are both WCW alumni, both men that are older than you would expect them to be for the type of output they've been putting out in the wrestling world. Both men that have an affinity for bats, both men that love Jesus, right-wing Trump supporters, very similar individuals.
Oh man. Last question here before we move on.
Really, it's a mirror match, honestly.
It's a mirror match. It's SummerSlam 94.
But where was Sting's wife on January 6th?
Oh my God, don't do that.
Oh
I'm
man.
just playing. I love them both.
Last question 7252 says, is Sting and Darby Allin temporary members of LIJ just like Jay Lethal was?
Yes. all these people that linked up are now honorary members. Yes, Tomohiro Ishii is a part of the elite, and it'll be written forever on the wiki.
Missed opportunity.
One day member.
They should have given Ishii some streamers. They should have given him a bandana.
Yes.
Oh, we didn't mention everybody in that match cut the eyebrows.
They all shaved their eyebrows.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I watched BTE today. These guys, they must be stopped.
Ishii was like, nah.
Eddie Kingston in the elite.
Even has eyebrows. Does Ishii have eyebrows? I don't think he does anymore.
No, everyone but Ishii, obviously.
Yeah, but I don't think he could. I don't think he physically has them anymore.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know.
Oh man,
but they match. I like how they all matched Tomohiro Ishii except Kingston.
Black and white, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, guys. Big main event here. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, taps out the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada in 27 minutes and 47 seconds.
We heard it. It happened.
It's the final countdown.
That was so cool.
I gotta say,
it was.
I gotta give it to Bryan Danielson, because I'll tell you this right now: if I show up to the job and like I clock in, I punch in, and like 10 minutes into my work day, I think I broke my arm. It's a wrap. I'm clocking out right then and going and head to the ER right then. Fuck this match. I'm going. Sorry, Mr. Tony Khan, about your billionaire pay-per-view and all that kind of stuff. Sorry. This shit ain't gonna fix itself while I'm doing this shit with this dummy off the side of me. No, not going home. No. So shout out to him. It does explain a lot about the match. I did not really pick up that it was actually a legitimate problem. I thought it was part of selling. But it's real easy to sell like you're hurt when you're actually really fucking hurt, right? But yeah, I thought it was a great match, but obviously it was not the best match on the show. It was not the second best match on the show either.
Yeah, and also you brought up that leads to a question from Death Triangle 720. Do you think the main event was cut short due to the injury?
No.
I mean, it went 27 still.
They got a lot of time.
Yeah,
I don't know if they had the greatest chemistry in the world. I didn't realize he was fighting until injury until he revealed it in the press conference. He's probably gonna be out 6 to 8 weeks. This did feel big time though. Like when those guys made their entrances, it was like, yeah, man. There's as much as I railed about the main event not being Oscar Omega. Like when these guys are walking out, that's how you know if something is worthy to be in that spot, and it totally was. Like it was just like you get this feeling like Okada gets the last entrance on this thing, and it's like we're all waiting for him. Like the end of the night is culminated to him, and it's like, is this motherfucker worthy of all this? Yes, nigga, he is.
You guys hear how?
So when do you think Tetsuya Naito will come out last on the AEW pay-per-view?
Never.
Man, I used to look. James is trying to take me back to the old me. No,
because Zach Porter was watching this, so I just had to,
Yeah.
Because let me tell you about what this fucker did while he was watching. In the middle of the match, he says, "All right, I'm out of here." In the middle of Danielson Okada, this hating ass nigga got up and walked out. I was like,
real.
I did not know that it was this bad for this man. And he showed up wearing a Kaito shirt too.
Oh man!
Here's how bad it is for Zach. We've lived through years and years and years of Will Ospreay hate, and suddenly this man's coming around on Will.
This man's coming around on Ospreay.
Ospreay.
The game has changed.
That Okada hate, still as strong as ever.
Never.
No, but he's coming around on Ospreay because he's part of the alliance to end Okadaism. That's
right.
The only
That's what I'm
reason
getting
why.
at.
It's beautiful.
He's a sick man with a nasty agenda.
That's a clip.
Yeah.
He's a sick man.
Like the clip is gonna be
so
like,
funny.
He's a sick man with a nasty agenda.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut a promo and
Sick
say
man.
that one day.
Yeah, man. I like
the comments. Yes. I'm a hater.
like-
Me. Can you imagine being like happy that you're a hater?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Bro, look, isn't it amazing how both companies have like their alliances to stop Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega? It's like these same two niggas run this business. They always have.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, this great matchup. I marked huge for Final Countdown. I watched a lot of Ring of Honor back in the day, and Brian McGinnis, Brian and Joe, just all the great Bryan Danielson matches from that era, and watching him come down to Final Countdown, it was great to see it here. Kind of
Got the braids.
Yeah, had the braids, set the tone for the night, and Okada, huge entrance, Rainmaker Bucks, like huge pop, but ultimately, I think there's a better match in them. Also, like we mentioned, Brian got hurt, broke his arm in the middle of the match, but for a broken arm, and for a crowd that just saw Omega Ospreay too. I still thought they did a heck of a job. I went 4.5 on it. I definitely think there's going to be setting up for a rematch. I think we're going to see this potentially at Tokyo Dome, which Josh alluded to earlier. That means Okada's probably not winning G1. So there's a lot of great story elements that can do with Bryan winning here.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought that Bryan Danielson actually had a broken arm. I didn't think that. But what I did notice was he started selling the arm, and I was like, I don't remember Okada ever working the arm. And you know what I thought? I was pretty tired at this point. I kind of thought that maybe I just missed the arm work that was probably realistically non-existent. And instead of it being a story element, he just was hurt, and I didn't realize it. And I was like, damn, he's really selling that arm. Like, this is Macho Man-esque. Like, he's doing a great job selling the arm. It's like, oh, it's broken.
Damn.
Do you remember the Adam Cole versus Jake Atlas match where Jake Atlas blew out his knee?
Yeah.
And then, like, Adam Cole, after he blows out his knee, he basically just like, Atlas can't do nothing. So, like, Cole just immediately like puts on a nothing hold on the injured leg, and then I got to tap out. Like, that's kind of what Okada did. It was like, I ain't do nothing. He just hurt, so he's just gonna work that in. Yeah.
One thing that needs to be addressed, and I felt like the match was really good. It was going great. The crowd was really into it. They had a lot of momentum. They're getting a lot of reactions. And then they go to the outside, and Okada hits a very safe, I mean, extremely safe. Like, you could tell when he dropped the tombstone on Danielson that his head was nowhere near being close to, like, hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Hits him with that. Then he rolls Danielson's body into the ring to stop the count. And while that happens, I'm watching with my girlfriend's brother, and he's like, is he kind of like convulsing? And I thought it was just his take on like the modernized Hulk Hogan cell, like the flopping
it was. That's what I thought it was. And I actually pointed out, I was like, he's doing the Hogan cell when he was on the apron. And then once he got in, he started actually doing a seizure. And I was like, all right, man.
Yeah, he started seizing. Yep. And when he seized, not only did I not like it, but the audience live just died. They got deathly quiet. And I don't even know if it was a fear as much as it was like, all right, here we go again. Because this isn't the first time that they've really played around with concussions and fake injuries like that. They did it in the Danielson versus Garcia.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they bring the doctor in, and, you know, Danielson's doing a pretty convincing, seizure, but I don't know that I want to see anyone going through a seizure in the middle of a major main event like this.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't. Especially when it's a guy who has he has a history of that. And it kind of just brings back bad memories. And I was like, it's a little bit in bad taste. And I'm not usually one to, litigate what people do in a match like that. But I was like, I don't know if I like that. Then all of a sudden, like, Okada looks like the biggest douchebag in the world because he's like, get out of the way, doctors. fuck his seizure. I'm gonna rainmaker his ass.
Don't you see I'm in my like Inoki tribute gear? Either stop the match or let me beat his fucking brains in.
But after that spot,
I just didn't buy it. Like, I didn't buy it for a second. I was just watching it, just like, all right, get up.
Again, that's kind of that Westernism. Is like, we didn't need that. We didn't need this whole mid-match angle. Like, just wrestle.
Right.
Yeah, that was some FTR bold. I'm really injured, and I'm gonna sell the injury shit.
We didn't mention this earlier, but during the Ospreay and Okada match, when they're in the middle of the match, and obviously Ospreay's been going in on Canada during this whole thing.
Yeah, we didn't mention any of that.
Oh yeah, his entrance.
Talked about Callis being an asshole. Talked about Jericho being an asshole. Talked about how Omega's an asshole. Talked about how Christian's a dick as well. Comes to Canada, grabs the Canadian flag, does that whole Survivor Series '97 thing that Shawn Michaels did. Then slaps on a sharpshooter that was as poor as a sharpshooter you'll see this side of the Rock. Look, Kenny Omega was holding on for dear life to keep that leg up because it wasn't attached.
He crossed the legs correctly, at least. Rock never did that.
Yeah, but the end result, we're looking where it ended up. Ended up the same exact out of place funky position. So Omega's fighting towards the ropes. I don't know if he made the ropes or not, but then he transitions to a crossface. And it's like, so you purposely chose to be self-referential to Chris Benoit. And then like someone told me that like, I don't know if this was on purpose, but like it was the anniversary of him murdering his son in White in the King himself. And I was like, that's nasty. You should have done this. And I even think about that anniversary part. I was like, in the middle of the match, while I'm doing all this Canada stuff, all this anti-Canada stuff, you then bring up one of the most famous Canadian wrestlers that had ended up being a fucking, disaster of a human being. I was like, oh, you should have done this. And then the crowd chanted, some of the crowd chanted, "You sick fuck," while it was happening too. And I was like, honestly, how are you supposed to respond to that if you're in the crowd? Mm-hmm. How are you supposed to?
Well, I didn't know about that, but going back to this match, I noticed that the crowd, as great as some of the closing sequences were, they just never fully ever got the crowd back after the seizure spot. It just never.
Then the finish, nobody saw coming. Like not the finish, not the result, not like the flow of the match. Did we think it was a finish or anything? It was like
it was one of those shocking deals because like you weren't expecting Okada to tap out.
Right. And it wasn't Brian's signature either. It wasn't LaBelle Loughlin cat mutilation.
Prior to that, Danielson got hit with a clean Rainmaker and kicked out, and the crowd barely responded to it. And I thought it was game over because everyone just loses to that move now. It's much more protected than it was, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But the crowd didn't react to him kicking out, which I was a little surprised by. And then they went into that the submission sequence, and like legitimately there were issues throughout the match where, because Danielson had a broken arm, he couldn't actually do the LaBelle lock the way he normally does. So then they had to pull an audible, and he had to do like a Zack Sabre variation and hook the arm with his legs and do a crazy funky submission. But
it was like the Julia Bianco deal.
I never for any moment.
Not Bianca. Sorry, Bianca's Shuri shit. Sorry.
I didn't think Okada was tapping. For one, he was very close to the ropes. Number two, it wasn't getting the reaction from the audience that we were about to see a near finish. Like the crowd was absolutely thinking that he was going to get to the ropes and we're going to go into the famous hot close that these guys are both known for, especially Okada. And instead he tapped. What it reminded me of when Triple H was right by the ropes and tapped out to John Cena in Chicago at WrestleMania 22, where everyone's like, huh? Did that just happen? Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. Like he got him.
I was like originally it ran through my mind. I've never seen Okada tap out to anybody. And then like Twitter seconds later was like, oh yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura got him in 2015. I was like, oh, okay, I remember that. But other than that,
right.
That's the last time, 8 years ago.
Top people do not tap typically, like no matter what promotion it is. Like think about how many times you've seen Roman Reigns submit, John Cena submit.
I don't think I've ever seen Roman Reigns submit.
Hogan submitted to Kurt Angle, I believe, like once or some shit like that. It's always like stoppages or some shit.
Right. Yeah. I what I will say is, you mentioned the Nakamura Okada match. Like for me, like the last match I thought was like I got surprised, like I was really shocked by somebody tapping out, and I wasn't expecting it. Was like that, like in a big way, was like that summer 2015 thing with Brock and Undertaker. Mm-hmm. Where like he tapped and was like, wait, what? Huh? And like, don't get me wrong, like what he slapped on was nasty looking, and like you just didn't expect it to happen.
Yeah, and again,
it happened. You're like, oh shit. It looks nasty as fuck. So yeah, okay.
For him bringing up saying Moxley tap out was nuts too. Yeah,
that's right. But he was getting hung. So
yeah. I think to Josh's point, like the positioning was just kind of bad because like I thought Okada was going to stretch his foot out. Like his foot was like right by the rope.
Yeah, that's true.
Had it been more in the center of the ring, I think it would have been people would have bought it a little bit better.
Right. But also, that's like that point where like Daniels can't drag him back to the middle either because his arm's so fucked up.
It wasn't a question of the validity of the maneuver. It was the way that they worked the actual sequence. We've been conditioned to view a submission like that to be worked in a particular way, especially if it's going to be like match ending. And he was so close to the ropes. It felt very anticlimactic. The crowd, the audience live didn't react that well. And I'll tell you guys, and I'll say this unashamedly, I'm not always a New Japan fanboy. I know that we are, me and Jeremy, we do a New Japan podcast, but I didn't really personally enjoy watching Okada get tapped out by Bryan Danielson, mainly because I love Bryan Danielson, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but he's not a guy that has been presented consistently on AEW television as a tip-top guy. He's someone that I thought was Teflon that could easily take the loss and should have taken the loss and probably given that one make good win to, New Japan's top guy. I get it. I understand they're going to do more business down the road. So I guess it's okay. Huh?
What you mean Sonata won?
Yeah.
So did Naito.
But it sort of felt like they got fucked a little bit here where I'm like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel like a happy way to end the show. Maybe I'm in a different camp than other folks, but it felt like the happy ending would have been Okada picking up the big generational win over an aged Bryan Danielson, and we all go home,
And Danielson's a heel. Well,
right.
So
and Danielson's the heel. Yeah.
But here's the thing: the second that the tap out happened, I looked over to Jeremy. I was like, Tokyo Dome. That's the first thing I thought. Like,
I'm sure
there's no way he beat him, and he's not leaving back. Danielson is out here losing to Daniel Garcia every chance he gets.
Yeah.
You know what else it reminded me of in a way, and this is a little different, but remember that deflating feeling when Okada rolled up Jericho at Dominion, and it was like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's the finish?
Mm-hmm.
This match reminded me of that. No. It was better. This match was better.
This is way better than that.
Yeah.
The match was better, but the finish reminded me of that, where I'm like, that's the finish? That's really what we're doing? I don't know, guys. I didn't love that finish.
Yeah, I didn't love this. Like, I thought it was a good match, but it was like there was too much where it was like it's just not getting to where it
needed to go.
I thought. Yeah, but when a guy breaks his arm, there's only so much you can do. Like, so, I didn't realize that. Had I not watched the press conference and stayed away from the news, I didn't realize that in real time at all. So, trying to temper my analysis here. So.
Yeah, but overall, great matchup. I'm kind of like you, Josh. I mean, also being, the New Japan guy. And I think also too, just the run that Okada's has been on this year. It's kind of, Jumbo Cerrito run where he's just kind of destroying people and more aggressive, destroying the young guys. Like, it felt like, he should have won this match. We said that last week on Keeping It Strong Style. But again, once Ospreay kind of won, I was like, I think...
Yeah,
that increases Bryan's chances of winning here, and that's what they did. But again, like we said, there's going to be a rematch, whether that's Wembley or Tokyo Dome, wherever they're going to do it. I think they'll do another match, and hopefully Bryan doesn't break his arm, and it will be better than this one.
Gotta say, I would love for that to be at Wembley. Like, I can't wait.
I'll be there.
I can't wait to hear I can't wait to hear the people complain about, like, hey man, like they're putting Okada. They're giving him a huge marquee match at Wembley. What about Ricky Starks? Who gives a fuck about Ricky Starks at a time like this?
What about Jay White?
Who? Completely left off Forbidden Door.
Well, he's not allowed to work for New Japan.
That's right.
He lost to Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Look, it sure seemed like he thought he was going to be able to work that, given that he took credit for that building's gate as well. He did that like 2 weeks ago.
James makes a great point. Whether you like the wrestlers or not, I guess you can't say these wrestlers fans aren't passionate about them. But different masters need to be served here.
Yeah. We got to.
Oh, I also apparently John from Makase tweeted this out and it gave me a chuckle that like some of the domestic fans in Japan like watched the match and were like shocked that Okada tapped. It was like, wait, he got tapped by a junior. That's hilarious. It is like
TJP might have Okada's number.
What's the one Twitter account that's saying what all the Japanese consensus is?
I don't know.
Puro power.
Puro power.
Yeah, Puro Power. He's like, all Japanese fans are saying this, and I'm like, how do you know that?
I think I don't know what he said. Look,
You don't know that.
What they said. But what I will say
Dark
is,
Pure Resuflosion setting trends out here.
It's the same shit.
nasty.
It's like,
You
what are
nasty,
you
man.
talking? No, it's the same shit.
So what I will say is this: like you mentioned that the Jumbo Tsuruta run or whatever else that Okada seems to be on. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the man finna come back this summer to that G1 and wrestle all them young punks and beat their ass. Don't get it twisted. It's still happening.
But he's not in that block.
He's not in that block.
Right. Oh yeah, he faces whoever we think wins that, and will probably, we think it could be Kiyomiya. But like, look, somebody's gonna get that, that Misawa win. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But somebody's gonna be set up out of that eventually, out of a group of newer guys returning from excursion and everything over the last year or two. And like they're gonna be put to the test. And
let's go Tsuji.
Yeah,
I really like Tsuji, man. I really like Tsuji.
I like Tsuji.
Yeah. Like I like Umino, and I like all of them in Narita, but like Tsuji in that match against Sonata is like, I think we got ourselves one, and I think we got ourselves one. So he looks great, and
we got
he's out there.
We got some questions, Jeremy?
Wrestling to the appropriate level of the match he's put in. So yeah, I we'll see. And like Tsuji pulled up to Kiyomiya at the Noah thing because they're in the same block. I'm really interested in the A block. Really am.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch it all in like 3 days.
Gonna go through these questions real quick. I'm gonna try and skip over the ones we've kind of already answered as we talked about the match. I'm gonna jump to Oscar Rooney. He says, were there too many matches to the point that they tired the audience? They were paying attention at the end, or that there was very little noise?
We were supposed to get another match.
Supposed to be more. So
there's supposed to be more matches.
I don't think it was match length. I think it was the end of a long weekend in Toronto. Brought it Saturday night at Collision, and then back to back. And then by the time you're at the end, it adds up. But there was a lot of greatness they had to sit through, and a crowd only has so much in their tank. I don't think this was necessarily, hey, there's too many matches. So like, I think it was, hey, we saw too much fire shit.
I do. I think when you have a 5-hour show, I think that, again, the match structure for the layout does matter. And I don't know. This probably could have been just as good of a show if they just gone 4 hours instead of 5. Personally, that's my opinion.
I don't think
the main card went 4.
Yeah, but yeah, and then I think a 4-hour pay-per-view with a 1-hour pre-show is too long in most cases, unless you're going to structure it like a Wrestle Kingdom, which they didn't. Mm-hmm. It's too long, and I feel that way almost every time I watch an AEW pay-per-view at this point.
Or if you do like Japanese shows that have brief intermissions in between. But that's one thing we do forget about when we talk about like the way they level up these shows, or they stack these shows to crescendo at the end of these cards in Japan, is that like there are intermissions in between this stuff. I don't know if people have patience for that on the American side, but if it does give people time to, take a breather, kind of reset or whatever else mentally, then I think that could be helpful. But I don't know people, I don't know if that's something that like the American side would be able to adopt in that way. But I will say, as far as the problem of feeling like the crowd was too tired, I don't necessarily feel like that is exactly the case in this particular situation, because like the crowd did come back around at the back half of the Okada and Danielson match, and like that's the purpose of having some of these matches, that like some of those great matches that have to go back to back in New Japan or Stardom, whatever else, that like the matches go so long that like the reset part is like the first half of some of these matches, or the first third. So really, I feel like we're really more talking about like the come down from coming from one of the best matches ever to the 6-man clusterfuck of Sting, and may have gotten doomed or got destroyed at some point and was foggy. So I don't know. I really don't feel like the last hour of this show suffered greatly because one of the matches was great and the other one was just unfortunate placement.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they could have shaved some time off, maybe off some matches, or or maybe it was just a structure, but there could have been something done to kind of help it out. And also, too, we talked about the whole seizure thing, too. I think that kind of killed the crowd a little bit, too. So there's a lot of different kind of various factors, I think, that kind of really hurt that last hour. But I think there could have been some stuff they could have done to rearrange it.
I will say this. I much prefer, like, this 5 hours of Forbidden Door to, like, 5 hours for WrestleMania 35.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Miss J Doom on Twitter says, "Do you think this loss will make Okada even more aggressive throughout the upcoming G1?"
Yes.
I mean,
I think that's a possibility. I also think that because he tapped out and his arms were attacked, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some stories where people are focusing on that weakness as well.
yeah. But I think he's definitely going to have a chip on his shoulder going into G1. And obviously, I think he's going to be one of the top 2 finishes of his block.
I hope so.
Okay, 890 says, "What promotion got Sun more, Noah or NJPW?"
That a real question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their top young guys wrestling in New Japan's round robin tournament and not wrestling in theirs.
Yeah, I think he's trying to compare it to like when New Japan does a crossover with Noah. Like New Japan comes out strong, and now in this crossover,
And Noah gets it way worse.
Yeah. Like who the fuck is coming over from New Japan's side as a top star that's going to come back and do a job for Noah? Oh, no one? Okay. What do you think Danielson's doing on January 4th?
And
What do you think Kenny just did?
Right. He also asked, "Do you think the rub of submitting Okada deserved to go to an NJPW guy instead of someone who's already seen as one of the best ever?"
Ask Okada. He wouldn't have done the job for him if he didn't want to.
Right. Like what under 30 guy in New Japan has a submission that you be like, all right, he can slap this on and like I'm going to make this submission forever because I've tapped out to it. Is there anybody?
Shit, maybe Okada just shouldn't have gave up. Had you thought about that?
Yeah. Man, weak.
Man, when came to America, thought it was sweet. Thought nobody was watching. You know, they always said, Okada was like Hulk Hogan. Did he come over here to Canada and assume his home country would never see it?
Reddit user Solid Deuce says, "Do you think AEW casuals are more interested in Okada, Naito, and Tana after Forbidden Door 2 or less?"
Hard to say because I have a hard time imagining like you're into All Elite Wrestling from like day one and you weren't already aware of these guys, especially given like the kind of reactions they've gotten these last 2 every time they show up, honestly. Yeah. So it's hard to imagine. It's hard to come up or figure that out because like if you were a day one or a first year person, you already knew who these guys were.
I don't expect every fan to be converted and then be like, yeah, I own a New Japan World subscription now. But I think whenever these guys show up, their reactions are only going to get better and stronger, especially like Okada, Will Ospreay, Tomohiro Ishii. You know, he's been in for Dynamite, it's been for 6 Man's big match with Jericho. This here, he's like made forever, one would think. And even like Sonata, like I think you got to keep bringing him back. Like, and you know, and as young as he is going to be part of this series going forward, and this series is going to continue. Eventually, it's going to happen in Japan. Like they got that Wrestle Dream thing trademark, whatever that is. So like, I think it's just a long-term investment. And these guys will. It's not going to be immediate. Like people are not going to see like a 15% spike, from the audience. But like even if it's just once a year, or somebody's a little bit more over, I think that's worth it.
Yeah. I think like Rich said, not everybody that watched this is going to be converted, and like James said, I'm sure a lot of fans are already aware of the product. I've seen some people say like, well, New Japan was diminished in the booking in XYZ number of ways. And maybe there is some validity to some of that. But at the same time, it does a world of good for them on the Western side of business for them to be presented on an equal footing with the number 2 company in North America. And then to give them this kind of exposure I made a joke about exposure, but that is very important. And there will be some number of fans that are exposed to these talents and these wrestlers and gain some sort of level of just curiosity about the product and want to find out how they can watch more of it, and they will tune in. And it works both ways, and that's the beautiful thing about a partnership like this, is that synergy does create and expand fandom for lots of different people across the board. So I think ultimately it's a good thing. I don't see how that could possibly be a negative thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the Japanese fans too are like getting a chance. I can't speak for them or anything, but I imagine like, the Jeremy, Rich, James, and Josh of Japan, that we don't know or whatever in a parallel universe or whatever, like, or watching, the AEW stuff, and it's like, like this is something, they're going on their podcast and they're breaking it all down and analyzing those guys, and they want to see the AEW guys probably come over, so. Imagine, parallel universe.
I just did imagine like the Jeremy, Josh, Rich, and James of Japan, and I was like, wow, just wow.
I do think there should be a Japanese equivalent to this show down the road.
Absolutely,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a big win for AEW to get, or for New Japan to get to use some of the AEW guys as well. Next week we got Eddie Kingston challenging for the strong title. Moxley has 2 death matches, one against Desperado and him and Homicide against Despy and Jun Kasai. So we're getting it both ways, where these guys are being featured on both of their big shows. And so, like you guys said, I don't think we're going to see a huge uptick in maybe Okada, Naito, Otana, but just kind of creating more synergy and seeing both guys, show up on each other's shows is pretty cool. Which kind of leads
Brewhaven in the comments said, "Damn, would that universe's version of Nihon James be America James?" So like, Nihon James is a very big, proponent of all the women's divisions in America. What?
Big Lacey Evans fan.
He tunes into the OCC Roadhouse Shine shows out of Largo.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say that's not true, but it's like, bro, I've watched some of the most disgusting clarity and resolutions for some of these wrestling shows in history. Like, I'm talking about 144p to watch some of this shit. So I can't even say no. That's too bad. Nah.
This is how you pronounce James's.
If there is a Japanese James, if there is a Jimisu, then that's what they be doing. Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it, like this. American Jameson.
God damn it.
A follow-up question from Solid Dude says, will Tony continue the partnership if most of his audience doesn't see anyone outside of Ospreay as a top act?
Yes.
Who don't they see as a top act?
Yeah, like I think they even see Tanahashi as a top act still.
They do, yeah.
Because so like
they see a lot of the stars that are not top acts as top acts because of how they've been presented. Ishii, Suzuki. What are we talking about?
Yeah, and plus, the young guys are coming. Like we're already seeing Shooter on these cards. He's gonna get pushed up more and be a featured star. Once they see Suji doing the flips, he's got the tassels. Put Suji with the Bucks. Like,
yeah, let's do that.
I don't want to say anything. I don't know if that listener is listening right now or what their intention was with I don't want to presume anything, but what it sounds like to me, and I'm just kind of guessing, it sounds like an insecurity about New Japan taking the loss in some of this stuff, and then, like I said, getting diminished. And I don't see it that way at all. Like, even though, like, yeah, we took some L's, like Tanahashi's still a big star, Naito's still a big star, Hiromu's still a big star, Ishii, Okada, like, these are all big names that do business here in the States, and they did business on this card, and like, they're still going to be viable draws a year from now when they do another one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. One quick thing. Did you say we like it's you're on the roster?
Well, obviously, I typically shy away from saying that, but I'm like, empathizing with him in empathizing with New Japan in this specific moment. I don't typically use that language normally.
Okay.
Stale Burger Bun says, after Okada and Tanahashi's embarrassing defeats, is Sonata the true ace of NJPW now?
Sure.
Yeah.
This company will die.
Doesn't the title symbolize that you're at the top of the profession or the promotion?
It should.
Was CM Punk at the top of the promotion when he was champion in WWE all those months?
See, that's the difference. We're talking about pro wrestling. You're talking about sports entertainment.
Man. Poor Sonata. Hope he figures it out.
Our buddy Swagger Mike says,
You said about man, it's like closer to 40 than 30.
Our boy Swagger Mike says, overall thoughts on the AEW NJPW partnership? Are there things you think they can improve?
Yeah. I think that they could cycle one or two people that they have specific things for in storyline, like throughout the year, right? And take them off of a particular tour for like a month or something like that. Not necessarily the big guys like Naito and Hiromu and Okada got to stay there. But, someone like Shota comes in and, does some BCC stuff here and there, that sort of thing. Ishii, because obviously Ishii's already someone that are like, after we get past the G1, like there's somebody that like the crowd, he shows up, he always gets over every time the bell rings in AEW, every single time. And the crowd obviously loves him and treats him better than he probably does domestically. So like somebody like that, Suzuki is another answer like that too as well. Yeah, I feel like they could integrate those people a little bit more, but it's a hard undertaking because they already got too many damn wrestlers in AEW to begin with themselves with their 4 hours of television or 5 hours of television.
I think it's just making sure you're mixing more acts in with this like crossover stuff, like like all your black wrestlers, like the Acclaimed. I feel like should have been on this card. I feel like Swerve should have been able to get on this show. I feel like you're about to heat up Powerhouse Hobbs inside of this Owen Hart tournament. Could you have found something for him in a multi-man match, something like that, and give these guys a chance to kind of prove that they can do, they can get in there with the Japanese guys too.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the black wrestlers, but like, there ain't nothing we can do about the Mexican wrestlers because they all blacked out politically.
Yeah.
So, but what I will say is, you mentioned that the Acclaim will come out and like, look, we can't have the Acclaim on the live mat or on the live mic, like come out to the ring, dissing on people. Like, what happens? What do you think he's gonna say when he faces like Shibata and Orange Cassidy?
Chappin'.
He's gonna talk about Chappin. No, we can't be doing this. Can't be doing this.
I think that there's probably better communication from both sides that needs to be taking place. I don't want to say it's 100% AEW's fault, but like the Kenny Omega title reign fucking sucked. Maybe they shouldn't have ever put the title on him to be hijacked for 6 months. This payoff was great, but 6 months is 6 months. It fucking sucked. Stuff like that's not great. The stuff where New Japan is always promoting anything related to themselves and AEW constantly in almost every imaginable way, and AEW doesn't do any of that on any level, not even in social media. That fucking sucks. And then, it does feel like AEW, to some degree with the power dynamic, throws their weight around and kind of gets their way in the booking. Now, granted, they are gracious in some aspects, but sometimes it feels a little imbalanced. Those are probably my biggest complaints about it.
Yeah, I kind of echo some of those sentiments. Like you guys were saying, I think definitely more more cross promotion, having these guys. I think we're seeing that with the BCC and Elite stuff, having these guys kind of cross over more and kind of build some more inner promotional stories that you can blow off at a show like this. I think if you're going to let a guy win a title and go over to Japan, like let him do a little run there. Obviously, I know Kenny is obviously a big AEW star, and from the AEW side, I get it why they're not letting Kenny go to over there to defend the title so often. But maybe have somebody throw some of the young guys over there and have them do a run in New Japan while they're not doing anything on Dynamite. And the borders, the travel is a little bit easier now, so like it's easier to get guys back and forth. Also, we're seeing Moxley go back and forth more now. Eddie Kingston's going to be in the G1. So I think as they continue to work together, I think we will start to see some of these gripes get a little bit better and a little bit more synergy as time goes on. All right, well, that's it for the questions, guys. We did it. We reviewed Forbidden Door, one of the best shows of the year, featuring another Omega Ospreay match of the year contender. It's great stuff, guys.
Real quick, Rich. So you saw both shows, so I wanted to ask you, best show of the year so far to date.
I feel like I'm going to forget something, so I am kind of getting put on the spot here. I feel like Revolution for me is still up there. I think that one is, just top to bottom, just an embarrassment of riches of 4-star plus matches. And then that one Stardom show is pretty up there as well. Was that one in March?
April 23rd. Yokohama Arena.
April 23rd. Between both of those, and then this, I think, is going to get a lot of love. WrestleMania Night 1, a great fucking show. In Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, I believe, or there was just one Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
I think that's like what we're talking about, like right here.
Okay.
As far as the best, I think I'm still going to go Revolution.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up our crossover episode here. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to all of our feeds, the Social Suplex Podcast Network feed, One Nation Radio feed, Keeping It Strong Style feed. Subscribe to the Social Suplex YouTube channel. Subscribe to the One Nation Radio Twitch channel, doing this live stream here. So, give the love on Twitch. Make sure you hit up the donation, socialsuplex.com/donate, and then follow us all on Twitter.
Get your merch. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to the Keepin' Strong Style audience. It's been a long time. And this is your preview. If you like this show, at the end of the year, the FOH draft will be 10 times wilder than this. We will all have drinks in hand, and we will be all shooting on the business.
And you might hear a little bit more of Rich and James when I'm in London. Those guys will kind of fill in for me with G1 coverage. So.
Oh yeah, we got to figure that
out. All right.
Sounds good, man.
See you guys.
Peace.
Later.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.